Tonight we'll be discussing land use legislation and upcoming housing amendments. And our presenters today are Dan Diaz, our Economic and Community Development Director, and Rachel Marble, our Economic and Community Development Code and Policy Project Manager. Welcome to you both. Thanks for being here. And Robbie, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. First, a big thanks to Rachel and Dan and all their staff. The information we're going to be sharing tonight is quite complicated. This is stuff that's come up in the legislature over the past couple of years as the legislature continues to push ways for helping there to be more housing, which is great, but it does on the local level create some challenges. And so Rachel's going to walk us through tonight about what those things are so that the council can be prepared, because some of these things are going to need to be adopted as is from the state. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rachel.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Rachel Marble. I'm a Code Policy Project Manager in the Economic and Community Development Department. As mentioned, I'm going to talk to you all about some legislative updates specific to housing this evening. So this list is not conclusive. It's not all of the legislation that's passed that's relative to land use, but as you can see, there's been a big focus on housing. There's been a couple of other things that have been focused on by the legislature that are represented in that other category, which include childcare facilities, residential treatment facilities, middle housing and land divisions. But I'm going to focus on housing tonight because there's some big upcoming changes specific to housing applications. So just first of all, to go over the legislative intent of some of these bills. They are aimed at reducing barriers to the land use process for housing production, and mostly focused on procedures for housing for land use applications, some of which we'll see tonight. There's also been a focus on, or a shift of focus on public involvement occurring earlier in the process, so at the community planning, comprehensive planning stage, rather than on a case-by-case basis during the land use process for development. So just a quick overview, reminder of land use procedures, because like Robbie mentioned, it is very complicated. There's 4 types of land use procedures, ranging from a type 1, which is like a fence permit. It's a ministerial permit you get over the counter, all the way to a type 4 land use procedure, which is a legislative procedure, which is what a code amendment would be brought to you all as. For this evening, the procedures that we're going to be focusing on are both type 2 and type 3 procedures, which are administrative. Type 2 is administrative, so those decisions are made at the staff level. There's no public hearing. You don't see those land use decisions unless there is an appeal, which comes before you all. And those currently in our code have a 200-foot public notice radius. There's also been changes to type 3 land use decisions, which are quasi-judicial decisions. Those decisions do require a public hearing by statute, and they, in our code, require a 500-foot public notice radius. I will note that there are land use procedures set in statute for both types of these applications, and they actually differ a little bit from our code in that the type 2 procedure in the statute requires a 100-foot public notice radius. So we extended that and we over notice those applications. And then type 3 applications, similarly, they at minimum require a 100-foot notice radius for properties inside the urban growth boundary. That gets extended a little bit if you're noticing land use applications that involve properties outside of the urban growth boundary. So for example, an annexation. But we have typically over noticed those land use applications to allow more properties surrounding the development application property to be aware of what's happening and an opportunity to comment. And the last thing I'll say about these 2 procedure types in the statute is that there are certain land use procedures in the statute that establish a floor for public notices, and there are certain ones that establish a ceiling. So there are certain ones we can extend and certain ones we cannot extend. So there are 2
Councilor Embry.
Thank you. So the types are also determined. It's part of the statute.
Yes. So in the statute, right, more previously. The land use procedures were tied to what type of decision you were making, not necessarily the type of application. This has been a bit of a shift because the statute is now very specific to certain types of applications, not certain procedure types. So the statute talks about limited land use decisions, which are made at staff level. It talks about quasi-judicial decisions, but it doesn't talk about what specific land use applications they are talking about when they talk about those procedures. The shift I'll talk about this evening, the statute does have changes that focus more on types of applications versus just procedure types.
So, sorry, so the statute just does say type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4?
It calls them by their, it didn't, no. So quasi-judicial procedures are labeled in statute as quasi-judicial procedures.
Okay. So these types are this is our code.
It is,
Okay.
and it's consistent with other jurisdictions, how those are labeled. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
If I can just add one more point, because we received a couple questions on that even leading up to the meeting. Our code with the types really tries to be consistent on the procedural steps, whereas within a type, as Rachel mentioned, you'll see different terminologies used, quasi-judicial or other things like that. And so if you do have any other questions as we go, we'll try to categorize those, but that's a little bit why you see the typing and then those other descriptor terms like she's using and you see labeled on the screen before you.
I like the slides.
Okay, so the two applications specific to housing application procedures are the two bills that I'm going to talk about are Senate Bill 974 and House Bill 4037, one of which was from last legislative session, one of which was from this year. So the first item in both of those bills are some limitations on when local jurisdictions are allowed to hold public hearings to make a decision. So in House Bill 4037, this limited or prohibited local jurisdictions from using a public hearing to make a decision on applications for the development of housing subject to clear and objective standards. And then 974 limited 3 specific application types and prohibited the city from holding public hearings on these to make an initial decision. We are allowed to hold a hearing for an appeal of these. So if there's a local appeal, we can hold a public hearing, but not for the initial decision. I will note the first part of that, 4037, applications for housing that are subject to clear and objective standards is essentially all housing. So in the statute, there are requirements for needed housing, which was expanded a few years ago to be all housing. And they're all subject to clear and objective standards, meaning that we cannot be discretionary in how we make those decisions. We have to have both clear and objective standards and review procedures for those. We are allowed to have an alternative path for applicants to elect into, which is typically what you would see some of those second applications, a planned unit development, for example. That's an alternative application that an applicant is electing into to get more flexibility from the code. And those, the clear and objective ones have always been made without a hearing, but the alternative applications, such as a planned unit development or variances, adjustments, are discretionary applications. So they have been made with a public hearing because of the discretion.
Councilor Alcare?
Yeah, I have a question, couple of questions. So was there a problem with public hearings? And that's my first question. So I'll let you go ahead and answer that and see if I have my second question.
I think there's a perceived problem to public hearings. The barriers for housing production, I mean, that's a wide array of things. And I think, quite frankly, the legislature has been throwing whatever they can at reducing those barriers. There are procedural requirements that go along with public hearings that extend how long it takes to make a decision. So typically, like a staff level decision, for example, that's in Hillsboro. While we have 120 days to make that decision, we typically make it within 4 to 6 weeks. A type 3 public hearing application, you're looking at more like 2 to 3 months to get a decision. because we have procedural requirements like noticing and like publication and setting a hearing before either you all or the planning commission, things like that, that make that timeline extended. So I think in this case, it was probably an aim at reducing that timeline of land use application review to take them out of the public hearing realm and just make them all staff level decisions so that those timelines were shortened.
Robbie, I think that not having any public engagement, I want to know, is your process going to be quicker and faster and allow for community to have a voice or have some input?
Well, I think that's the challenge with what Rachel is sharing is this is not a city decision. This was made at the state level and legislature. They're essentially telling us moving forward, and I think she'll get to that. This is now the new norm. All cities have to abide by this new state statute, which does not include the normal amount of communication and engagement that we would have normally done. As she mentioned, I think their thought is this will hopefully shorten things. I don't know if that's the case, but that's what we're now being told that we have to do by the state.
That puts us in a hard position. And furthermore, all those permit types that you showed before sort of going to allow the state to make decisions about what's going to happen here, regardless of what we think on this city council and on behalf of the constituents out there. Okay, I think it's important for public to be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so based on the new requirements around public hearings or the prohibition on public hearings, this is a list of applications that you all currently have decision-making authority for in the development code. After July 1st, 3 of those, which are specific to residential development, you will no longer have decision-making authority for. And that's specific to residential. So you'll continue to see non-residential applications for planned unit developments, which are very, very rare. And we have not seen one in a very long time. And zone changes, if they're not residential zone changes, those would continue to come to council. You will still see planned unit developments and zone changes as a map change ordinance. That's one of the awkward parts of the legislature prohibiting public hearings is that, because of the way things work, these still have to go to council because we do not have the authority to change the zoning map without city council. So things like the planned unit development, which is a zoning overlay in our code, and a zone change, while we can make a decision on those items, we can't update the zoning map without council. So those will come before council as a map change ordinance with 2 readings because it's required to have 2 readings. So back to kind of the intent of removing public hearings and shortening the timeline. While it eliminated a public hearing for these items, it didn't necessarily eliminate or shorten the timeline because of kind of procedural requirements like that, where we don't have the authority to update the zoning map per our charter. So it still has to go to council. The removal of the public hearing does, remove discretion, and it removes, whether that's a benefit or not. Obviously, it's removing the opportunity for public comment at a public hearing, but in some circumstances, for housing particularly, where we don't really have discretion in those applications, it is eliminating a public hearing that might give the public an opportunity to comment where they don't actually have necessarily power to change things because there's very limited discretion in those.
I can just want to point out a couple that maybe some of those will be about public transit and whether or not that plan for whatever community may or may not be near public transit, and the folks community intended that might be living there may be reliant on public transit. So I can see why people might have concerns and may want to point things out that may be within the city's power to do something about that. I don't know. You guys are the experts, but that's what I'm gonna recommend.
Thank you. You can keep going. Oh, sorry, Councilor Case.
I know we're not done yet, but I'm wondering, this sounds like a pretty big change and that there's gonna be some bumps along the way, but I'm wondering if maybe we could get an update in like 6 months at how it's going, just to work out some, like, give you guys an opportunity to kind of figure things out, and then can we plan for an update on this at some point in the future, just to see if there's, I mean, I don't know, what if we would need to like give pushback to the state and say, hey, this doesn't.
Are you thinking like August 1? Give it a month or?
I would suggest a little longer, only because
honestly.
it really is dependent on when and which projects come in before we even know if there's like some examples to share. So maybe we look later in this year, and once we feel like there's been enough projects that we've gone through this new process on, that we can then come back to council and say, here's what happened. So I don't know that I want to commit to a date yet, since we just don't know what projects are going to be coming this fall. But once we have enough of those projects, we can come back.
Okay.
Yeah. One other indicator of how well it's going may be whether or not you start seeing appeals of these applications, because there are certain applications that, while you're no longer making the decision, you may be making a decision on an appeal hearing if that were to occur.
Oh, Councilor still got him.
Yep.
And Councilor
Sorry, I was a little
Hayward.
late. Yeah, I mean, I think generally I'm in support of reducing costs to build housing, right, and speeding that up. I think we all agree on that. I'm noticing that there's certain things that get passed at the state level that don't necessarily make sense for every city to completely abide by exactly how they're designed. And I feel like this is a situation, or this bill is one that is in that kind of bucket. And so I just want to use the example of what happened with the River Road project and the county, right? Legally, they followed the law as far as communicating about the project, reaching out to the people that were going to be impacted, and did all that, right? Within the letter of the law, they did what they were supposed to do, but it wasn't enough for the community. I mean, it created an uproar. There's a lot of concerns. People were kind of throwing, it was kind of throwing people's plans up in the air, and they had to figure out different routes, right? And so I think that's a good case study and lesson into how we should manage the transition into adopting this, because even though they're saying they're removing these requirements, I think we still have a responsibility and the ability to be transparent and more communicative around these projects, right? To give people more of a chance and more advance time. So I'm hoping, and I'm not offering a direction, but I'm just wondering if that's something that we're considering as staff, right? Like, because I know we care about transparency, we care about community engagement, and so this new law kind of contradicts that. So what are we doing to kind of meet in the middle, right, and make sure that we're informing the public and that there's enough time for them to respond?
So I'll take that to segue into talking about public noticing.
But I'll
because-
you up there. Did you have a question, Councilor Harris, before then?
Yeah, my question is on the other slide you have there. Sorry to hear, but I'm going to ask it, I guess. After July 1, applications council no longer decides residential PUDs, major mods to PUDs, or zone changes for PUDs. I understand the map still have to be changed. Who does make those decisions after July 1?
All three of those will be staff level decisions.
So say the staff level says we're approving the zone change for this location, and then you say, hey, now we need a map change from city council, and we say, no, we don't like it. Is that possible? I mean, could that happen theoretically? I mean, so sort of what's the point of staff making this? I mean, can they get a permit without a map modification, I guess is my question. Well, it just seems good.
It depends on what the proposal is and what the current zoning is. So it is a bit site specific to your exact answer. If the property was zoned some form of residential and their permit was compliant with the codes and the policies that the council had previously adopted, staff would seek to implement that and approve based on those code elements. Now, if it was a non-residential zone or they're proposing something that was not allowed in the code, then they could not get the permit without a potential map change that would then enable that to happen.
So if it was an R, what do we have, R 6.5 or something? And they file for a PUD because they want to do slight, sort of major changes to it. And staff approves it. Now, I know most of the time you look at the maps and it'll have a little, it'll say PUD right on your map, right? And I'm assuming that is supposed to be changed based upon your finding, and you issue the permits, but we haven't changed the map and someone objects to it on whatever. Council says we don't agree with this. What happens with that project? Do we know? Have they considered that at the legislature? What happens if council says we don't agree with staff's decision?
I think that that's one of the kind of procedural gray areas and awkwardness of this specific legislation is just that there are procedural steps that weren't necessarily considered. I think the just elimination of public hearing was kind of just a mandate, and there wasn't necessarily thought put to this kind of procedural question. I would think that again, no one's tested this because this is not how it's ever been done. So I would think that in that case, say an applicant, we approved a plan unit development and council did not approve the map change. I would think that they would still be within their right to appeal to LUBA, to the Land Use Board of Appeals, based on a procedural error on our part. Whether they win that or not, that's up to the court, but they still would have a remedy, whether that's through circuit court or the Land Use Board of Appeals.
And I would just add, if I may, before the follow-up, is that keep in mind that a lot of this too is reducing the discretion. So this is not just a fully opinion-based art show critique. It really is staff assessing based on very prescriptive standards of allowance or some degree of variation to those standards. So the discretion there, and this is something we work on within the staff, the consistency of what we are deciding to either approve or not approve or approve with some conditions of approval should be pretty closely aligned to what council would have weighed in on and set in the form of the policies and the zones that we're applying. And so our hope would be is in terms of maintaining updates and discussion with the council in terms of overall housing policy and production, that in a decision made by staff in this case on a planned unit development while still requiring a council decision to officially amend the ordinance in the map, there should not be many or especially many significant deviations. And if there are, then that probably warrants us having a more refined policy conversation of what is it we're trying to see overall in the codes and the standards in applying to then future projects that may come in.
Thanks. Just one quick comment. I agree with that. I think if we're aligned on values, I think that's going to be happening. The point, I guess, part of my point was to find out the answer to that, but also to point out that sometimes in Salem, the legislature passes laws that have unforeseen circumstances. They create local conditions over which we simply have no control.
I also want to get back to, I'm sorry.
No, that's the 6-month check.
Yeah, that's the 6-month check-in. Yeah. Thank you. 10 points to Gryffindor for your question. And then I did want to get back to Councilor Salgado's question. I didn't want that to get overlooked. So do you know it or you want to ask it again?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's any consideration to that, right? Because we value transparency, we value community engagement. So are we gonna go above and beyond what the state is gonna set at the minimum bar?
Yeah, so I will talk about a few circumstances in which.
And no is a completely acceptable answer because I know it just got passed, right? I just want to make sure that we're thinking about that because, even though the impact was to a very small amount of people, it was a real impact to those people around River Road, right? So the more time we give people, I don't see how housing or a building a complex is going to create the same sort of barriers for people, but we don't know, right? So we got to get ahead of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I will talk about a couple of things that where we are strictly prohibited from doing anything more, and then areas where we could potentially be creative and find solutions to be more transparent and offer a little bit more notice.
We do have a couple more questions. We have Councilor Anvery and Councilor Allcare. Councilor Anvery.
Thank you. So for in the previous slide, the zone change, the map change, that is under council because of our charter?
Yes.
Yes. And is that generally true for cities?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And are there plans to change that?
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
No, and just for the sake of moving in the presentation, part of the reason for that is when we do a map change, for example, we are officially changing the ordinance. So if we were to soften council's authority there, you might lose additional authorities to really set the ordinances of the city, which is your policy responsibility.
And then Councilor Allcare.
So can you give us some examples of why you would need to come to council to vote on anything? You have, I just want to be clear, if you can give some examples of why you would need to come to us.
Sure. So after July 1st, after the changes.
Whenever.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, council still will hold the decision-making power on annexations, on development code text amendments, which is, there was one before you this evening, comprehensive plan amendments.
So North Hillsboro and that land use plan, correct? Does that include North Hillsboro?
Like a community plan for that area?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That would still come before council. That's not changing. So those first, 4 items are not changing as far as the decision-making authority on those. Those will remain. And for those 3 applications crossed out, any non-residential versions you would also see for those. So for example, a zone change in North Hillsboro, that's an industrial designation, you would still see the decision for that because it's not a residential zone change.
Is that inclusive of the lands that were considered for 1586? No.
No, one way maybe to just restate council's authority to answer the question is anytime we are setting policy, what do we want areas of the city to be used for or become? That level of planning and policymaking, council ultimately makes the final decision on that. And so that would be true for North Hillsboro, South Hillsboro, changes to downtown plans, wherever we're saying these are the general types of land uses and infrastructure we want in an area kind of in a broader approach, that still comes to council. It's when we are now implementing those plans and codes, especially on residential projects, that those would not come to council anymore. So maybe that slightly said a little bit differently, but maybe that helps to where you throw it in. Same thing with annexations. You're changing the city boundaries and authority and service responsibilities of cities. That has to still come to you no matter what, residential or commercial industrial.
We can always say no. As a council, we can always say no. We still have that authority.
It depends on which of those areas you're in. There are times like annexation we can deny, but it's important to keep in mind that there's approval criteria. So if an applicant is meeting certain approval criteria, you can say no, that decision is not likely to stand. It will likely be appealed and we will lose. On the policy front, you can also say no, but there are certain times where you or the city overall has a responsibility to plan for an area. What you want it to be is where we still need to get to some form of yes, but you can say no or no but, and we can look at something else there. But like imagine if, for example, in Aranco, if we just didn't plan that area, that's a problem. So no, we're not going to plan it might not be an answer, but no, we don't like that part of the policy. Can we consider a different policy is definitely appropriate. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. And one other thing to mention of somewhere you could say no is a community development code text amendment. So we'll have to adopt development code text amendments to put this statute into our code. That will come before you all in June. The caveat that I have for that is these are requirements in statute. So if we don't adopt them into our code, they still stand and they will apply directly to land use applications. We don't have, it will just be more confusing because it will not be in our code. And applicants will have to, and property owners would have to look at our code statute and put everything together to figure out what applies to their property. So that's the benefit of putting it in our code is it's easier for people to understand what applies to their property. But while you could say no to that text amendment, it will still apply. July 1st, it will still apply to any land use application that's submitted.
Okay, Councilor Embry has a question. I also want to remind the council that I love the interest and the passion, and we have to finish this briefing before 7, ideally before 6:50. So, Councilor Embry.
Thank you. So my question is, so there are multiple statutes listed here. So, and there was just one new one that was passed in 26. So why are the 2025 ones affecting us now?
Yeah, so they all have different effective dates, and some of them have multiple effective dates within them. So for example, 2138 from 2025 had multiple implementation dates in it. So you'll continue to see that one. Again, you'll see it in the fall again, because there are certain sections of that bill that had different implementation dates.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, so the second thing within those bills was some required changes to public noticing. It's the same applications that were in the public hearing changes. So the required changes to public notice within those bills, those 3 specific applications that are in Senate Bill 974, those currently have a 500-foot notice radius because they are require a public hearing currently. As of July 1st, Senate Bill 974 requires a 100-foot notice for those applications. They will now be type 2 applications instead of type 3 applications. And Senate Bill 974 set a floor. It did not set a ceiling, so we can go beyond that. And then secondly, 4037 set a new public notice radius for applications for the development of housing subject to clear and objective standards. And that was set at 100 feet and it cannot be expanded. It can only be sent to property owners within 100 feet. So an example of what that looks like on a map, these 2 properties came into the city within the last few years for an annexation and zone change and subdivision. This is the 500-foot notice radius, and it is hard to see on the map, but all of the dark blue properties would received the public notice for this application. This is moving forward. The annexation is the 500 feet still, and this application originally went to 81 people whenever it was annexed for the annexation and the zone change. So then after July 1st, that's what the notice radius would now look like if we were doing the either minimum or maximum in the case of the subdivision. So a subdivision is a application for housing subject to clear and objective standards. So a subdivision, we do not have the ability to extend that. It's set at 100 feet. That application would only go to 17 recipients. The zone change, we do. So that's where I've provided 2 options, essentially, in places where we could elect to go beyond the requirement. So the option 1 would be just using the 100-foot notice radius, which is what is required as a minimum. The option 2 would be using our standard notice radiuses, which are beyond the current requirement in statute. So those 3 applications will be now a type 2 application staff level decision. So they could have a 200-foot notice radius. And then secondarily, if any of those applications were to be submitted concurrently or in a consolidated application with type 3, a higher level, we could elect to over notice any application in their consolidated application. So for example, the zone change, which was changed to 100 feet in the statute, if that was submitted with an annexation, we could notice both of them together at 500 feet. So someone's getting not one notice, and that's kind of aiming to get at that discrepancy that might occur where some property owners are getting an annexation notice, some property owners are getting a zone change notice, and then unfortunately some property owners will be getting the subdivision notice, but that one we cannot change. There was no limitation in the statute, and there has not ever been before on posting public notices on the website. So that has not changed with the statute. We can continue to at our risk, at our legal risk, I guess, can continue to post notices on our website, which we do. There are also certain applications that we post on site, like an annexation, and there's not a prohibition on doing that either. And then lastly, we are to get to the question of what could we do to keep people informed of what's going on. We're launching a new software platform called Open Hillsboro in July, which will greatly increase the transparency of applications for land use and for permits in the city. And someone would have the ability to go on to that, look at their property and look at applications that have been submitted, whether that's land use applications or permits around their property, which you don't currently have the ability to do. We have not had an online platform for that previously. So that's a big change, and that's something that will make that information more readily available.
Councilor Emery?
Thank you. So Open Hillsboro has been planned as a response to, no, it just happens to be, and is it only for residential? Oh, okay, very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick note on that. Open Hillsboro will be for all development applications, land use applications, permits across the city. While it wasn't done in response to this legislative changes, it was done in the spirit of trying to increase our ability to facilitate development applications and continue to grow and increase transparency and access into that information for the broader community.
Right. So the last thing I'll touch on within the bill, this one was specifically in House Bill 4037. This introduced new limitations on appeal rights for housing applications. So housing applications that are subject to clear and objective standards have been reviewed at a type 2 staff level decision, which they will continue to be. However, previously or currently in our code and in statute, anyone who provided written comment on an application had standing to appeal. And that's anyone in the public or the applicant. This bill limited the appeal rights to the applicant only and prohibited the public from appealing housing applications subject to clear and objective standards, both locally and to the Land Use Board of Appeals. So that is a big change. Obviously, those applications previously had appeal rights for the public, both locally and at the state level. And that has now gone away, and that's not something that we are able to change. So how are we communicating these changes to the public? We have put information about these upcoming land use changes in City Views for the May edition. We have an expanded, and that's a short blurb in City Views, which points you to the website to a longer news article that's explaining these changes, and that's live now. That blurb also went in the Happening in Hillsboro email in May and points again to the website with expanded information on that. We also have a website or a page on the code amendments section of our website, which has information about upcoming code amendments because these changes are going to be adopted in more than one code amendment. We will be including information flyers in the permit center and in libraries in June after this goes into effect, and then also include information on the reader board in the permit center. Beyond those things, which are going into effect July 1st, there are some other upcoming changes, which are both required by legislation, but then also as a part of our implementation of our housing production strategy, which was readopted last year. So some upcoming changes in the fall, like I said earlier, House Bill 2138 had multiple implementation dates. One section of that, for example, for middle housing had a section that introduced changes that will be effective January 1st of 2027. That is that we now are required to allow detached plexes. It also included some refinement of the cottage cluster standards, which is a type of middle housing. It also included some required density bonuses for middle housing specific to affordable and accessible housing. So those will be included in a code amendment in the fall, and they will be effective January 1st, 2027.
Sorry, quick question.
Councilor Case?
What is a detached plex? Is that like what we saw today where it was like the two, I mean, those are duplexes technically, but.
Those are attached. Those were
Yeah,
attached.
right.
So typically plexes are attached. So it's like a duplex, for example, is 2 units that share a common wall on one piece of property. That a few years ago, I guess, I will say that kind of all standard also changed because plexes, duplexes, triplexes can now be subdivided by right through a middle housing land division. So they don't have to be 2 units on one lot. They can be 2 units on their own lots. Detached plexes are, for example, a detached duplex would be two essentially detached units on the same lot sitting next to one another. So from the street, it's going to look like 2 single family homes.
Not touching you kind of thing.
Wouldn't that just be a single family home?
Yes, correct.
Can I just say thanks for doing this work so that, and figuring it all out for us.
The cottage cluster refinement also included a requirement to allow attached cottage clusters. So again, there's a lot of changes, and I think that again the aim is to greatly increase the housing production, reduce barriers. I think in doing that, there are a lot of things that have introduced more confusing ideas. And there are a lot of things like the middle housing requirements that unfortunately we are tied to some of those state definitions. We can't deviate from them, and we're going to be required to report on our housing production of some of those, like plexes, for example. So while it would be nice to just put in the code, like build whatever you want at a certain density and with certain standards, we are tied to those housing type definitions in statute and in rule. So they are confusing and probably will continue to be even more confusing as more of these housing types are introduced.
Okay, thank you. Let's keep rolling.
And then that's in the fall. In the spring, we are set to work on a code amendment that will implement a couple of our actions from our housing production strategy, specifically the 2 actions that are aimed at increasing housing, multi-dwelling housing, both in our standard multi-dwelling zones and then in mixed use and commercial zones. The policies for those were set with the housing production strategy, and this will be implementation of that. There will be policy options that will be a part of that, and that were also kind of outlined in a housing code audit that was completed last year. And those items are a reflection of our housing production strategy, not of state statute. So those are items we will have choice in how we implement them. And then the other action was action 1.4, which was talking about refining middle housing development standards. Some of those did overlap with HB 2138 once we adopted the housing production strategy. So some of those will be required and some of those will be kind of up to us to set locally. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And Dan, any questions, any further questions, I should say? Councilor Embry.
Thank you. So we'll get the updated slides because I thank you for adding especially the feet slides. No, that's it.
Councilor Harris.
Going back to one of your slides, you have slides.
Please use the mic. Put it close to you.
Sorry. Going to one of your slides, it said policy direction on notice, and you had three options actually. Are you asking for our feedback today?
Yes, it's actually just 2 options.
Okay.
And it includes, so the option 1 in orange is just following statute.
The default.
Yes, and the option 2 would be electing to provide a greater notice radius for the applications that we can.
Okay, so looking at the 2 option 2s, I guess, are those involving different types of applications, or is the green one would that apply to all of these types? No, because you got type 2 and type 3. So you're talking of two different notices based on what kind of applications are necessary to complete the project.
Correct. Yeah. And based on whether it's consolidated with other applications or not.
Okay. And so you could go up to, right now, your current under a type 2 is a 200-foot notice. So you're suggesting that could be an appropriate thing for also type 2s. And type 3, currently we're at 500 feet, which is the old statute, I think, right? So you're suggesting we could go up to 500 feet on these notices. And so my feedback on that is since the legislation also limited the ability of individuals to appeal, I think the more information to the decision makers early in the process is almost required. And it doesn't give these folks who maybe live 382 feet further away the right to appeal anymore, but they should have a right to know and be able to be heard. So my personal feeling is we should stick with the current 200, 500 feet for these two types, the type 2 and type 3s. That's my feedback to you.
So you want option 2?
2 option 2s, yes.
2 option 2s.
Yeah.
2 option 2s, thumbs up. This is notifying as many people as we can. Councilor Alker,
Can you give me an idea of what?
do you mind please using the mic? Thank you.
Yes. Can you give me an idea of what that looks like? The first option, number 2? What does that look like? 200 feet away. What is that notice going to look like?
I don't have an example on a map of what 200 feet would look like. I mean, and it will obviously change depending on what's surrounding it. So this example, the golf reserve golf course is next to this application. So that takes up a large chunk of, if that properties around it are really dense, it'll go to a lot more people. But I mean, it would be in between essentially this and this, that it would go to.
How many feet are we in here?
If you stood on a football field at a goal line at a touchdown and you went about 2/3 of the way to the other touchdown, that is the distance around the entire outer boundary of the applicant property that we would look in. Any properties that touched that buffer is what we would grab. But if you think about it, it's not quite a full football field. It's about 2/3 of that.
And how big would the sign be and how many signs?
So it wouldn't be a sign, it's a mailed public notice that goes to the property itself. We do site postings for certain applications like annexations, but most applications get a mailed notice to the surrounding properties. Another kind of like distance example might be that for a 200 foot, you would definitely be capturing properties across the street. For some of our larger roads, like 5-lane roads, the right of way is over 100 feet wide. So you wouldn't even be capturing properties across the street if you were using a 100-foot notice radius.
But everybody would get a mailer.
A mailed notice, to their home.
And 200 feet is the maximum we can do for that type, right? So it says 100, but what we're saying is we want to go maximum, right? The 200, and then the other type, we want to go maximum to the 500. That's what I'm seeing from the thumbs up right now. Okay.
I have a question.
Well, actually, Councilor Alker, are you finished?
I wanted to get a sense of the space.
Okay.
That you were describing of those options. Because I know that in the past, there have been notices given out to the public, and it might be on something that's smaller than this. And from a distance, like from a road. So that's why I'm asking, what is that supposed to look like with those 2 options? Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Embry?
Thank you. My question is, I have forgotten.
That's okay. You can ask it over email. Thank you so much for the briefing. We really appreciate it. And for the time that it took to go through all the new statutes. Thank you for going through that and explaining it out to us today. Really appreciate it. All right.
I remember. So
May 5th, 2026 Economic Development City Council Council meeting. Thank you for joining us this evening. The translation services, for translation services, please use the QR code on the poster on the left-hand side of the room or on the front page of your agenda. For those of you who do not know, the City Council also serves as the Hillsboro Economic Development Council, which is the city's urban renewal agency. Tonight, we will hold the Hillsboro Economic Development Council meeting, also known as the HEDC, and then we will move on to the City Council agenda. But first, you're probably wondering what is going on up here at the dais. We often point out the importance of developing future leaders in our community, and I'm proud to say the future is here right now. Tonight, we have the honor of sharing the council dais with our friends from the Hillsboro Youth Advisory Council, otherwise known as YAC. So can we give them a round of applause, please? Yeah. So they are here to get an up-close view of how local government functions by shadowing the council and various city employees. Our hope is that this experience gives them a deeper understanding of how decisions are made. These are exceptional students and community members, and we are very grateful that they care enough about our city to not only participate in the Youth Advisory Council, but to spend their free time shadowing us at tonight's City Council meeting. The YAC do have a hard stop of 9 p.m. tonight for their shadow time, as it is a school night. When we get close, I will call for the city manager report and ask for a brief recess while the YAC excuse themselves, and then we'll resume the remainder of the agenda. Lastly, one update to tonight's agenda. The post-council work session has been postponed to a future agenda, and that will be announced at a later date. And with that, let's proceed with tonight's business, and I will lead the HEDC meeting, and then Anna Kapler will assist me in leading portions of the City Council meeting. Anna is shadowing me as the mayor today. So I invite you, actually, you ready? You want to take it? Let's do it. All right.
I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amber, may we have a roll call?
Mayor Pace.
Here.
Councillor Alcaire.
Here.
Councillor Case.
Here.
Councillor Harris.
Here.
Councillor Anbury.
Here.
Councillor Salgado.
Here. Great. Our first item to consider is the HEDC minutes from September 2025. Do I have a motion to approve the HEDC minutes?
Harris so moves.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Salgado seconds.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? May we please have a roll call?
Councillor Alcaire.
Aye.
Councillor Case.
Here.
Councillor Anbury.
Here.
Councillor Harris.
Aye.
Councillor Salgado.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes. On to new business. Item 3.1. Consider adopt. Actually, you want to take it from here? How do you feel?
Yeah.
Go for it. Go right
Item 3.1, consider adopting a resolution authorizing the sale of real property in Jackson East North area to the city of Hillsboro. Resolution number 94-26 is available. This item corresponds to item 8.3 on the May 5th City Council agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 94-26?
Harris so moves.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Salgado seconds.
Is there any discussion? May we please have a roll call?
Councillor Alcaire.
Aye.
Councillor Case.
Hi.
Councillor Anbury.
Hi.
Councillor Harris.
Aye.
Councillor Salgado.
Aye.
Resolution number 94-26 is adopted. We have no other items to consider on the HEDC agenda, so the HEDC meeting is adjourned. And I will open the May 5th City Council meeting. We already conducted a roll call for the HEDC meeting, so we will not do another roll call as the same members are present.
Our first presentation is an announcement of the Oregon Mayors Association 2025-2026 If Our Mayors Student Contest winners. So I'll come down off the dais and to continue this presentation, and I'll have Anna join me. Come on down. So the If I Were Mayor contest is a poster contest that is hosted by the City of Hillsboro for students in the 4th and 5th grade within the Hillsboro community. The posters should answer the questions of how students would act and what they would do if they were mayors in their cities. We were lucky enough to have 70 submissions from local elementary schools, including submissions in English and Spanish. The City of Hillsboro Youth Advisory Council had the pleasure to vote on their favorite 3 posters. The first place winner is then submitted to a statewide level contest hosted by the Oregon Mayors Association. We are excited to recognize the poster contest top 3 winners at today's City Council meeting. The posters from these participants showed great creativity and a clear vision of their plans for the city as positions if they were mayor. Here to assist is Itzel Abascal Guerrero, this year's Youth Advisory Council intern and advisor. Itzel, can you come up? Hey, how you doing? Good, how are you? Good, good. All right, so winners, once you are called up, please stay in front so we can take a group photo at the end. So the third place winner is Emerson Harris, a 4th grader from Imlay. Emerson, come on up, come on up. Right over here. Congrats, Emerson. Ready to go? Emerson is receiving a gift card and a certificate for their accomplishments. Let's please give another round of applause for Emerson. The second place winner is Landry Leavitt, a 4th grader from Imlay. Landry will be also receiving a gift card and a certificate for their accomplishments. Is Landry here? Come on up. All right, yeah. Congratulations. Right on. Okay, and our first place winner is Evelyn Preston. Come on up. Congratulations, Evelyn. Evelyn Preston is a 5th grader from Katama Elementary. Evelyn's poster has been submitted to the statewide contest, as well as receiving a gift card and certificate for her excellent work. Results of the statewide contest will be announced later this month. So congratulations to Emerson, Landry, and Evelyn. I welcome the city councilors and the Yak Shadows to come down and join us for a big old group photo with the winners. The next thing we're going to cover is a proclamation recognizing Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and Anna will read the proclamation.
Whereas Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander ANHPI Heritage Month is observed during the month of May to recognize the contributions and influence of ANHPI to the history, culture, and achievements of the United States. And whereas, for more than a century, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities have made valuable contributions to all areas of life in Hillsboro, including government, business, arts and sciences, medicine, education, and law enforcement. And whereas the City of Hillsboro acknowledges the vast diversity and pays tribute to all ANHPI community members who have striven, fought, and sacrificed for a brighter future for the next generations. And whereas racism and discrimination against ANHPI people, which increased in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, is currently experienced by our neighbors here in Hillsboro. And whereas we recognize the negative impact of institutional and structural racism, past and present, and pledge never to repeat the egregious acts of historic discrimination committed, including the incarceration and relocation of Japanese Americans during World War II, the exclusion of Chinese in the 1880s, and the Muslim ban of 2017. And whereas the City of Hillsboro is committed to being proactive to building a safe and inclusive community where ANHPI communities feel safe, included, represented, and celebrated, especially acknowledging our immigrant communities as Hillsboro officially became a sanctuary city in 2017. And whereas diversity represents one of our greatest strengths, and by recognizing the heterogeneity and richness of the many ANHPI cultures in Hillsboro, our city celebrates the importance of inclusion to building a stronger community for all. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Anna Kapler, on behalf of the Mayor of the City of Hillsboro, Oregon, do hereby proclaim May 2026 as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month in Hillsboro, and I call this observance to the attention of all our community members, encouraging all residents of Hillsboro to share in this by learning about and celebrating the generations of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders who continue to enrich our community.
I'd now like to invite Tom Arnold, Kendall Reed, and Nikki Iverson up to the podium. And just so you all know, Tom Arnold runs Public Works, Kendall Reed runs Parks and Rec, and Nikki Iverson runs our Water Department. And Anna will read a proclamation regarding Public Works Month.
Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities like the City of Hillsboro. And whereas the health, safety, and quality of life of the people of Hillsboro greatly depend upon our city's facilities and services. And whereas Hillsboro's infrastructure could not be provided and maintained without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, operators, and employees from government and the private sector. And whereas public works professionals are responsible for building, improving, maintaining, and protecting our community's public buildings and grounds, transportation system, water treatment and distribution system, sewer treatment and collection systems, and other essential facilities and infrastructure. And whereas it is in the public's interest for all community members to understand the importance of public works and public works programs. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Anna Kapler, on behalf of the Mayor of the City of Hillsboro, do hereby proclaim the week of May 17th to 23rd, 2026 as Public Works Week. Furthermore, I encourage all Hillsboro community members to familiarize themselves with our public works facilities and services, and to recognize the important contributions made each day by employees in the City of Hillsboro's Parks and Recreation, Water, and Public Works departments. A community event will take place on Saturday, May 16th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the Tom Hughes Civic Center Plaza.
Okay. Mayor Pace, members of council, members of our Youth Advisory Council, Robbie, Raheem, Simone, Amber. On behalf of the many public works professionals from our Parks and Recreation, Water, Community Development, and Public Works Department, I thank you for this recognition. The national theme for Public Works Week in 2026 is Rooted in Service, Powered by Community. This theme underscores their dedication and overall service to the community. These professionals are passionate about their work, whether it is developing and maintaining our parks, outdoor spaces, our urban forest, the many recreational and fitness programs, our commitment to deliver safe, reliable drinking water with special recognition to a new water source, the new Willamette water supply, the care and attention given to our public buildings and grounds that we're in right now, and our public roadways, sidewalks, sanitary sewer, and storm drainage systems that serve our community daily. To celebrate, we invite you to join us on Saturday, May 16th for Public Works Day on the Plaza, right out here in downtown Hillsboro. We will be alongside the Saturday Market, where there will be numerous tables and equipment displays to look at, and staff will be available to answer questions and discuss their work. The kids love it, so please stop by and say hello. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. Thanks.
Next up, we will hear a recap of the NLC conference from the Youth Advisory Council. But City Manager Hammond will start with a brief introduction.
Thank you, Mayor Pace and Anna. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce a group of young leaders who represent the future of our community. Tonight, we are joined by members of the Hillsboro Youth Advisory Council who recently had the opportunity to attend the National League of Cities Conference in Washington, D.C. This experience allowed them to engage with youth and elected leaders from across the country, learn about how local government and federal government intersect, and share perspectives on issues that matter to our community. Opportunities like this are important. They're an important part of how we continue to invest in developing informed, engaged, and confident civic leaders here in Hillsboro. This evening, they will be sharing reflections from their experience and what they learned during the time at the conference. Their presentation will help highlight the value of youth participation in national conversations and how these experiences translate back to our local community. So with that, I will turn it over to the Hillsboro YAC youth delegates.
So for the YAC members who are going to be providing testimony, please press that center button when you're prepared to speak. If you are not speaking, do not press the center button because then everybody will hear you saying other things. So whoever's going to go first, press that button and go for it.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Benjamin Barnhurst, and I had the honor of being a youth delegate to represent Hillsboro at the National League of Cities Conference in D.C. Now the other delegates will introduce themselves.
Good evening, Council. My name is...
Please pull those mics real close to your face and go ahead.
Good evening, Council. My name is Bridget Harrington.
Hello, my name is Joe Amonio.
Hello, my name is Nicole Ayala Kangachi.
I'm Sahil Shah.
Good evening, I'm Vihan Kinney. And now Sahil will talk about our NLC, talk about an overview of the NLC conference.
So at the National League of Cities Conference, we had the opportunity to connect with youth delegates from all over the country over a few days of youth programming and multiple networking opportunities. We were able to see how the different delegations involved the youth in their community efforts and initiatives within local government. And one initiative that particularly stood out to us was with the youth delegation from Florida, where they worked with local youth in their community to prevent a power plant being built by the Everglades in order to protect the wildlife that took refuge there. Now, I would like to pass it off to Bridget to talk more about our speakers.
So through attending the National League of Cities Conference, we got the opportunity to attend youth and general sessions. And so with these youth sessions, we had 3 of them that we attended. And in these sessions, we got the opportunity to take part in 3 collaborative youth workshops. And these workshops were really, really impactful for us. We got to speak to other YAC and were mixed in with attendees throughout the conference nationwide. And we had council share-outs, so we got to take ideas back to Hillsboro and note things that were really interesting and key takeaways to us. And then we also got the privilege of attending the NLC general session. And in this general session, we got the opportunity to hear from a variety of speakers and panels, such as National League of Cities President Kevin Kramer, CEO Clarence E. Anthony, and Vice President Van Johnson. And we also got the opportunity to hear from panels. One of them was electees from the state of California, and the other was a panel of lawyers, which included Mary B. Richardson, who was a lawyer from the Chicago Corporation Council. And now I'll pass it off to Vihan to talk about our time spent with you, Council.
Hi, everybody. So here's a little overview of our time that we spent with Council and our fellow Oregon delegates while we were in D.C. So first, as you can see on the left, we went to Carmine's Italian Eatery, where we had some great pasta. My personal favorite was the penne alla vodka. We also got the chance to network with our fellow Oregon delegates and our city council members at the League of Cities reception, and that was a great opportunity for us to get to know one another. And also, finally, we got to go and take a tour of our nation's capital with Council, and that's a great memory for me because we got to learn more about our nation's history and the capital history. And now I'll pass it off to Nicole to talk more about our experience at Hill Day.
I have to start with Hill Day being an invaluable experience. I cannot be more grateful for the opportunity to attend this incredible event. I and Joe had the privilege to speak directly to our representative Suzanne Bonamici and Representative Maxine Dexter. These experiences were incredible, not to just build our public speaking skills, but to actually have conversations about things that we are passionate about, such as education and immigration reform. Hearing from our representatives be able to speak about their perspectives on national issues and local issues that affect us directly as youth and as members of our community was inspiring, and really I cannot be more grateful to be able to have these conversations and to be in a place that is just so monumental to our nation's government and to our nation's history. We also had the privilege to go to Senator Ron Wyden's office, where Bridget was able to speak about the future Women's Sports Center, which is really exciting news. We also had the privilege to hear from Senator Jeff Merkley, which was again really inspiring and eye-opening to hear all these diverse perspectives. Additionally, hearing from the variety of cities and the youth delegates from other cities across Oregon speak about their community priorities was just also really, really valuable to hear all these other youth be passionate about things that are happening in their community. We can really see where our future is going, and I'm proud to see that. And being able to just be in the Capitol building and have these experiences, be at these events and stand alongside people that are leading our country's government is inspiring as a student, especially one that doesn't really get the chance to go out that far and experience these things. And so I couldn't be more grateful, and I know the youth delegates here share that same vision. Next, Joe will talk about our experience exploring the nation's capital.
Oh, sorry. I'm so thankful once again for letting us go to DC. While exploring Washington, DC, we went to a lot of important monuments, important buildings and other museums like the Abraham Lincoln Memorial, Georgetown, and other places. My favorite part was going to Abraham Lincoln Memorial just because of his importance in America, good and bad significance in playing a role in America. Now let's take it to some of our peers to talk about some of their favorite places.
I think that my favorite place that we got the chance to explore in DC during our trip was the Capitol building tour. Just getting to go and tour the Capitol and experience that firsthand is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. We also got the opportunity to have a representative from Congresswoman Bonamici's office lead us around the Capitol, and she was just very knowledgeable about the Capitol's history, the nation's history, and was really able to bring a sense of broad connection between the architecture and the monumental figures and statues that are in the Capitol and the significance. And so I think that was my favorite part, and I'll turn it over to Vihan to talk about his favorite part as well.
Yeah, so my favorite part about exploring DC was definitely when we took a small tour of Georgetown University. This was both due to the amazing architecture and its historical feel, and also just to the great energy on campus, and it was just a great experience. Also, I'd like to talk about me and Ben's friendship that we created throughout this trip. So me and Ben were not really great friends before this trip, and we got an opportunity to just bond and connect more throughout this trip. My favorite moment was definitely when this was actually at Georgetown in the middle. You could see that we got to get these churros from a local vendor, and they were probably some of the best churros I've ever had in my life. But yeah, I'll pass it over to Ben to talk more about that.
Yeah, one of my favorite
Ben,
moments.
it would be really funny right now if you refuted everything that Vihan said.
I don't know this kid.
Yeah. Keep going.
One of my favorite moments with Vihan is when we went to the old Epic-ville. It was me and his first time trying an oyster, and I just hold that moment in high regard. As well, I fully agree with Vihan. This trip gave me the opportunity to grow closer, not only with Vihan, but all my youth delegates. An example of this is, next slide. Visiting the nation's capital and taking photos there. This whole experience felt unreal, and being able to grow closer with my fellow Youth Advisory Council members made this experience amazing, and I will hold this entire opportunity in high regard as well. Next, I'd like to give the floor to Sahil to end it off with our final takeaways.
So our key takeaways from the National League of Cities Conference was that by focusing on the things that you care about, you can have the biggest impact on making changes about those things that you care about. And by doing that, you can naturally fall into a position of leadership and be able to connect with like-minded individuals who share similar values in order to focus on community-based incentives that have the most significant change and impact for your community. And now I'd like to pass it off to Bridget to close out our presentation.
So just in conclusion, Council, this was absolutely the experience of a lifetime, and I speak on behalf of all of our youth delegates sitting here tonight. We are so endlessly grateful to you all for this opportunity to travel to DC and to attend the National League of Cities Conference, so thank you so much. We so appreciate it.
Thanks so much for coming in and briefing, and then get up here and keep shadowing. All right, good job. Okay, moving on to item 2.5, appointments to the Public Engagement Committee. We have two candidates, Bridget Harrington, who happens to be right here, and we have Pallavi Pandey. Do I have a motion to approve the appointments listed?
So moved, Case.
Do I have a second?
Second, Anne-Marie.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? May I please have a roll call?
Councilor O'Carroll.
Aye.
Councilor Case.
Here.
Councilor Anvery.
Hi.
Councilor Harris.
Aye.
Councilor Salgado.
Aye.
The motion passes. And now we're going to move to public comment. But before we jump into public comment, I did want to take a moment to recognize Councilor Anvery. It's her birthday today. And we also have Joe. It's his birthday today, too. Can we give him a hand? Right on. And then I also want to recognize Kinza Arik. It's her birthday tomorrow. So happy birthday, Kinza. Way to go. Yeah. Okay, so we're moving into public comment now, and I have quite a bit to say before public comment, a little bit of information, and then direction. So I know that many of you are here to talk about the applications recently submitted, the E-zone applications or enterprise zone applications recently submitted by data center developers. Thank you all for coming to make your voices heard, and we look forward to hearing them. I did want to let you know, before you speak, please know that this flurry of enterprise zone applications is in response to House Bill 4084, also known as the Economic Development Bill. 4084 was passed to improve Oregon's ability to retain and attract business, and that's all business, not just data centers, and includes businesses that bring jobs and data centers and other opportunities. So just before House Bill 4084 passed, there was a group of legislators that added a moratorium amendment to this bill to stop data centers from receiving new enterprise zone tax abatements. And the moratorium goes into effect on June 6th. So if you are here to testify about the moratoriums, that's great. We'd be happy to hear from you. But I want to let you know that this has come from the state. And the moratoriums have been put in place and added as an addendum to House Bill 4084 to put that moratorium in, and that came from legislators. So I just want to let you know. This moratorium has caused data centers to apply for enterprise zone applications, or to apply for the enterprise zone abatement now, so they could take advantage of the enterprise zones. And so the way I equate this is that if you were going to make a large purchase and you heard that there was going to be a sale, let's say you were going to make the purchase later, but you heard there was a sale now, you go and make that sale, or you go and make that purchase now, because the deal is happening now. So I just wanted to let you know that this is a state law, and we must abide by the state law, and we are happy to listen to you tonight, but I just wanted to let you know that. And you should also know that Council President Harris recommended that staff look at all issues surrounding data centers in the last meeting we had, and we are in the process of doing that. Staff is looking at that. So again, we're happy to hear from you, but please know that these data center developers are applying for E-zone applications as a result of state law and the legislators who instituted the moratorium. Thanks. All right, so moving on to public comment information. Persons wishing to speak tonight will be recognized at this time. If you are here in person and wish to speak, please fill out a yellow card and hand it to the city recorder right over there. When I call on you, please join us at the 2 tables up front and speak into the microphone so those on Zoom can also hear your comments. We do have a translation tool, so community members can speak in their language of choice, and the city recorder can display the translation on screen. Gracias a todos por estar aquí y hacer oír sus voces. Queremos escucharlos. Valoramos a todos los miembros de nuestra comunidad. Si desean hablar ante el Consejo en español, pueden hacerlo. Rellenen la tarjeta amarilla que se encuentra en la mesa a la izquierda y entréguenla a Amber Rios, the deputy, or the city recorder. We have 0 persons registered to speak virtually. Is that still true, Amber? Okay. And the deadline to register to speak virtually is now passed. If you are unable to speak, if you are able to sign up prior to the deadline, you are always welcome to email your comments to the City Council at any time of day. Please know that this is public comment, and it's time dedicated for you to inform the City Council about your views. We will not engage in conversation. We are here to listen. Okay. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and we'll begin hearing from the following people. So first up is Destin Brown. Destin, you can come up and take a seat in front of one of the mics. Next, we have Denise Van Domelen, Leif Eccles, and Simone Campbell. Those are the first 4. You can come up, and I'll call on you in that order. We'll put the timer up above so you can see that. All right. So for those of you who are not speaking, make sure your mic is off. Destin, you are first, and take it away. You have 3 minutes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Destin Brown. I'm the Executive Director for the Hillsboro Farmers Markets. I came here tonight to thank you all for the city's financial investment and partnership with the farmers markets, and to share what that support has delivered for Hillsboro families, small businesses, and community connections. On the surface, the markets are real economic infrastructure. At a minimum, over $2.14 million in sales happened through the farmers markets last year. And we only expect that to grow as we do. Those dollars that stay local and support farmers, food producers, and small businesses. But the markets are more than that. They're also a major community asset. More than 200,000 people visit our markets, farmers markets, each year, and that is citywide impact. With markets in historic downtown Hillsboro, Orenco Station, South Hillsboro, and now our newest market at the streets of Tannisbourne, we are meeting residents where they already live, work, and gather. We deliver direct community benefits beyond shopping. By supporting food access through SNAP and Double Up Food Bucks, we were able to disperse over $30,000 of matching funds last year alone, which assists those of us that are the most vulnerable. We work hard to make these programs, I'm gonna check my time here. We make hard to make these programs visible, welcoming, and easy to use. We also invest in education and family programming. Our Market Sprouts program helps kids learn about food, farms, and the environment in a hands-on way. And What's Cooking demonstrations help families turn seasonal ingredients into real meals. All these programs depend on support from the markets, the city, and the community. I want to especially recognize a key expansion that our partnership with the city helped unlock this year, our winter market. It extended the benefits of the markets beyond the traditional market season, and I want to publicly recognize Rahim Harji as a driving force behind the winter market and a major reason we were able to bring it to fruition. In closing, we take seriously that public support and investment should create public value, and we're proud of what this partnership has delivered. I'm excited about what Hillsboro can continue accomplishing when we invest in community-based infrastructure like the farmers markets. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Paige Mendocino, you can take that spot. Denise Van Domlin, you are next. Denise, you have 3 minutes, and the timer's up there.
All right, thanks, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Councilor and Mayor Pace, I'm back. Good to see you all again. I'm here for a request again to please approve the new street names, Wally, named after my father, and Beaver, as an exception to the street naming policy to be added into the database to then be put on the final plat that's in process. As I have stated in my written testimony that I submitted, the names meet the various criteria for several reasons. But just a few is a history of the Van Domlins. My father, Wally, being one of the relatives known here for the Dutch area history and community especially, he lived a significant life making a difference, contributing on a daily basis to this community for what it was and what it is today, what it has become. A significant request to simply name and honor with his street name as promised to do for over 40 years ago. You all know the story I've shared along the way. Beavers, what can I say? Which are native to North America, go back to early American culture and history. And of course, the busy beaver has been instrumental to the region's growth and wealth, that its image is part of our state flag. We are known as the Beaver State, and has been a mascot for various Oregon sports teams around the state. In particular, my favorite, OSU, attending there, and my proud parents. Go Beavs. Please, upon approval for this exception, have the city manager approve and direct the staff to please add onto the plat that is in process. Thank you again, genuinely, for your time and consideration.
Okay. Next up is Leif Eccles. Simone Campbell, you'll be next. And then Dirk Knudsen, you could take the place of Denise. Leif.
All right, I'm here tonight to speak out against data centers yet again, as many people here are. I understand that the reason that a lot of the data centers are applying for the easy tax abatements right now is because the moratorium is about to go into effect. But those applications do highlight some of the concerns that we've raised, which is that these data centers do not create jobs. A lot of the information is not filled out or it's redacted, but at most we see that one of the data centers only employs 22 people. Some only employ 9 people. So when we're giving them 3 years of zero property tax, that's no money going to our schools, there's only at most 22 people paying property or paying their income taxes back to our town. So how is this actually helping anyone? And what's very interesting, I was driving back from Spokane this last weekend and had the opportunity to drive through some of our more rural areas, both Washington and Oregon, and saw quite a lot of data centers getting put up in farmlands, including the Port of Morrow. And recently, quite a lot of those data centers that are still being constructed are Amazon data centers, and recently Amazon had to pay $20.5 million to settle with Northeast Oregonians because of contaminated groundwater. So we've often heard that these data centers are a closed-loop system, all the water goes in and doesn't come out. And yet, these wells are now contaminated with nitrate. And our mayor ran on an agenda of environmentalism. And yet these data centers, they're going to take our farmland, they're going to pollute our water rates are going up, our electricity rates are going up, and it doesn't feel like the people of Hillsboro are being heard. So I hope that the city will consider the voices of the people and work to stop these data centers from continuing to pollute our land and provide nothing in return. Thank you.
And next up is Simone Campbell. Then we have Paige Mendocino and Dirk Knudsen, and Jacob Roloff. You can take that seat that was vacated. Simone, go ahead.
Here I am again, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Pace and council members and junior council members. My name is Simone Campbell, and I'm a resident of Hillsboro, and I'm a voter. This election cycle has brought us some fairly contentious races, from the issue with data centers, to ICE being in our community, kidnapping our children off the streets, to road closures, never ending, putting out poor people and farmers. There's no shortage of polarizing topics. One topic that has galvanized those of us who are paying close attention is the issue of data centers. From the lack of oversight, to land grabs, to tax steals and backroom deals, we are now faced with the task of weeding through the BS. Mayor Pace, voters should be concerned that your endorsement of a sitting senator who put pressure on a local news organization to bury a story that did not put her in the best light, that endorsement, Mayor, makes you complicit in suppressing information and, moreover, First Amendment rights. It makes me question your judgment, your motivation, and your priorities. I'm going to talk about something that's going to be a little uncomfortable for you. It's very recently that I learned your wife is a commander in the Hillsboro Police Department. If I had done my due diligence when deciding who to cast my vote for, I would have found out that the role that she held governs a lot of money. As a commander, 2 areas of concern for me personally is division leadership and executive oversight. This means she has a lot of control over how money is spent. Your wife oversees the business operations branch considered the backbone of the police department. She manages a significant portion of police department multi-million-dollar resources to the tune of about $12 million. If I had done my job as a voter and taken a closer look, I would have had serious reservations about voting for someone whose spouse had that much control. That is a conflict of interest if I ever saw one. If it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, you don't say, "Who invited the pig?" But I know better now. Mayor Pace, I had occasion recently, moving on to a slightly different topic, of watching a council meeting online where you stopped a person from testifying who used an expletive to describe how she was feeling. I spoke the first time here and I swore twice. You never once stopped me. You should maybe consider why that is. I'm calling you now also to rescind your endorsement of Janine Solomon. In not doing so, we will make sure that you are a one-term mayor, because we are not going away, and as we're not going away, people are joining us, and the group is getting larger. I encourage you to look at all that's going on around here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is Paige Mendocino.
Next up is Vern and Paige Mendocino. You're next. And yep, you're good. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pace and members of council. My name is Paige Mendocino. I am a Hillsboro resident, homeowner, and taxpayer, also a voter. I'm here because there seems to be a fire sale happening at City Hall right now. While Governor Kotek has called for a pause on data center tax breaks to study the impacts of our water and our power, our Economic and Community Development Department is doing the exact opposite. They are racing the clock to lock in decades of giveaways for companies like NVIDIA, Adobe, and CoreWeave before the June moratorium hits. And we're not just talking about 5-year deals. We are talking, in some cases, about contracts that will extend into 2050 and beyond. City staff claim that their hands are tied, that if a company meets minimum standards, we must say yes. So let's take a look at what we're saying yes to. A data center here in Hillsboro that's connected to TikTok receives $5.5 million in tax breaks for 11 jobs. So that's $500,000 per job. And I wonder, do any of the small businesses on our Main Street get $500,000 when they hire an employee? When Dan Diaz signs contracts for Flexential or NTT, he isn't just signing a piece of paper, he's signing away revenue for our parks, our roads, and our schools for the next quarter century. We are trading our land and our power grid for high-tech warehouses that employ fewer, in some cases, than 20 people. In today's Oregonian article, Council President Harris asked if these decisions should be elevated to the council level, and I am here to say that I believe the answer is an emphatic yes. Claiming staff has no latitude is a policy choice. It's not a legal destiny. By letting the auto pen and the clock run out till June, this council, I believe, is abdicating its responsibility for oversight and allowing a department head to bypass the intent of the Oregon legislature. We cannot wait for discussions. I am calling for an immediate stay on the Economic and Community Development Director's authority to sign any further enterprise zone agreements. Every pending application for NVIDIA, Adobe, CoreWeave, and beyond must be pulled and brought before this council for a public hearing. If, in fact, these deals are good for Hillsboro, then they can surely withstand the light of day. Thank you very much.
Martin Lamon, you can take that empty seat, and Dirk Knudsen, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Pace. I want to thank the YAC for having a great quote in the report, and that is, politicians should unite us, not divide us. And I thank you, all of you. And this is a great civics lesson for you during this time of discourse. I come to you about the Oregon Live article and Dan Diaz's actions. 18 enterprise deals pushing into 2050. I'm sure most of you don't know anything about this, because I know economic development doesn't bring counselors very much. You might get it, Mayor. Maybe Rob got it. But I don't believe that happened. And Mr. Diaz is under no obligation to rush. It looks like he's hurrying this up. And he's known for being a great real estate guy. People in the real estate community I am say he's like the guy, like he's doing more deals than anybody. So maybe you can't do anything with what Dan did, and Rob, this is up to you and some lawyers to figure out and the rest of the council. But what you can do with Resolution 2550 that created this whole mess is you have some actionable items I'd like you to think about taking immediately. One is you can change our zoning. You can do that quickly. Hillsboro has 2 areas in our industrial park that do not allow data centers. You all can have an ordinance revision that will apply. These data centers with these commitments do not have what is called a vested right under Oregon law until their land use plans are done. So I'm saying open the book up, open the code up, insert some restrictions, right, Rob, you're hearing me? It can be done quickly. Forget about fighting what Dan did. I know legally that's probably not even possible. I also want you to exercise home rule. I brought this before you before. We have a 3.5% franchise fee. Portland has a 1.5% privilege tax or privilege fee. So if we cannot stop this shopping experience that you talked about, Beach, which is really a free truckload of money reserved for the future, if we can't stop it, I'm asking you to immediately look at a privilege tax of 1.5% on top of the 3.5 and apply it to not just data centers, because that would be illegal. Apply it to all energy users over 20 megawatts, over 50 megawatts. You pick the number. It might affect Intel, but guess what? Record stock, let's get something back from them. Lastly, I want to have transparency. I want these agreements made public. I do not want to have to pay to get copies of them. I'm having to pay $1,800 to get some copies of documents that should be on the website that aren't. So lastly, please take a look at Dan's office and do some restructuring. It's out of control. It really is.
Jacob Roloff is next. Karen Jocelyn, you're up and you could take that spot. That'll be vacated in a moment. And Jacob Roloff, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, councilors and mayor. I am genuinely shocked and angry at the reporting from the Oregonian today about newly approved enterprise zone tax breaks, at least 13 new agreements. As Dirk said, every single one signed by Dan Diaz. Some of them appear to be placeholders where there's not even a constructed building and site prep doesn't even begin until the 2040s. How can the city possibly justify these agreements right before the moratorium on those breaks goes into effect? Although the names of the companies were redacted in the list of applications, they were easily removed and revealed nearly to be all data center operators like NTT and Digital Realty. Digital Realty, which is 25% owned majority by BlackRock and Vanguard, who manage over $20 trillion in assets. So why is our city allowing them to get tax breaks at the expense of our county and schools? The mayor is constantly mentioning and bragging about our new police station, which required no new taxes, and others never forget to mention the various fees we charge these data centers. None of it benefits the county or the schools. And with the speed of technological development, these facilities will likely bring in new equipment and qualify for tax break renewals. I hear from you all that Hillsboro and our county is an economic hub of our state. We seem to be leaving our county and state totally out of the equation for these agreements, and it cannot continue as schools close and budgets falter. I personally live in the county, but not in the city limits. I cannot vote any of you out of office for these terrible decisions, nor can I challenge your position in an election. My son will live with the ramifications of these facilities for years to come, you all need to get a lot more creative in your treatment of this destructive industry. Even Council President Harris is quoted in the Oregonian article as saying the decision to sign long-term deals just before the state's moratorium raises questions. I believe this could be a point where we need to have a discussion. That point should be today or the next meeting. Part of that discussion should be in the replacement of Dan Diaz as Economic Development Director. He seems to be playing at real estate czar instead of developing a dynamic economy. Likewise, I think this mismanagement should warrant a new city manager, and although I voted for the mayor when I lived in city limits, I now think voters should consider seriously a recall due to the relationship with landowners invested in further expansion of these extractive facilities. The schools and the people of the city and county deserve representative leadership and a livable world for tomorrow, and they're just not getting it.
Next one is Yadira. Yadira can come up and take that space that's been vacated. And Vern, you are up. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. In 2023, the European Union drafted and implemented directives for water and power consumption for data centers. They did this because they have 27 countries, most of which are still agrarian in nature, like us, using many of the same resources, such as the Danube River that flows through 6 member countries and 4 non-member countries. The water usage efficiency, WUE, which everyone is going to start hearing a lot more about that, is a standard they're using. It's equal to the liters of water used per data center over a given period of time, divided by the kilowatt hours of electricity, which I'm not going to talk about tonight, during the same period of time. A equals B divided by C. Very simple. There's nothing wrong with setting performance standards for industry using your purview. Governments do it all the time. Sometimes government needs to ensure they are playing a role in stewardship of those resources. While early reports coming out of the EU is less than stellar after they got through their initial trial period in 2024, it's a given, especially in the EU, that if the data centers don't make improvements on their own and a crunch occurs, the companies that did report and are working with the EU will go to the front of the line. Hillsboro's population increased 14% from 2015 to 2025. Our population of data centers during the same time period bloomed from 7 to 19 in 2025. So it's almost tripled in 10 years. And now it's going to get even better, right? Stewardship is a byproduct of leadership. Our City Council has a chance to demonstrate leadership and stewardship by taking action and setting goals for data centers while encouraging self-reporting of these companies at some level. Give us something. Consider incentivizing them through a participation reporting system. On the other hand, maybe we should just consider expecting them to report because they're probably already getting deals on that we don't necessarily have the details on already. In Oregon, there are many examples of cities and counties adopting policies that are getting implemented statewide because it's a good idea. Again, that's called leadership. Currently, Oregon has no legislation in process that addresses data centers efficiency. It died in committee a couple of years ago. Some of you sitting on this council are trying like heck to make noise and draw attention to the fact that not everything is tenable, while hopefully mitigating risks to our future. To those, we say thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Martin Lamon. Martin, is that you? Okay, hold tight. Jody, you can come and take the spot vacated by Vern. Martin, you have 3 minutes.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Pace and members of the City Council. My name is Martin Lehman, and I am a resident of Hillsboro. I'm here tonight to formally present a legislative framework I've drafted called the Commercial Resource Impact Surcharge Ordinance. I have provided the city recorder with a double-sided economic brief, which you should have in front of you. If you look at the front page, you'll see the core issue. Right now, the average Hillsboro resident opens their utility bill to find that roughly 70% of what they owe is dedicated to fixed service charges. These costs subsidize massive infrastructure expansion scaled entirely for 24/7 demands of hyperscale data centers. It is vital to acknowledge why these centers are here. They are drawn to Hillsboro by a unique convergence of trans-Pacific undersea and international fiber cables. They aren't just here because of property tax breaks extending into the 2050s. Because they are anchored here by the physical fiber network, it is time they pay their fair share for the local physical resources they extract. My proposal fixes this. It is a targeted capacity fee on purpose-built data centers. The revenue generated is directed exclusively into a legally segregated residential relief fund used to offset and nullify 100% of the residential fixed service charges for water and power. If you flip the brief over to page 2, you'll see the exact mechanics. I established clear consumption thresholds over 50,000 kilowatt hours of power or 1 million gallons of water monthly. Crucially, I implemented jurisdiction-wide aggregation. This ensures a corporation cannot evade these thresholds by artificially subdividing their real estate or using distributed campus designs. Also on the back page are the strategic economic exemptions I drafted. I know how important it is to protect Hillsboro's innovative economy. Therefore, I wrote in absolute exemptions for advanced manufacturing, including the semiconductor sector, aerospace, healthcare, and agriculture. I also incentivize high-value job creation by waiving the surcharge entirely for anchor employers with over 1,000 local employees. I introduced an innovation safe harbor to protect Oregon-based startups. The framework ensures global digital infrastructure pays its fair share while providing immediate financial relief to the people of Hillsboro. I respectfully request that the council review this brief and direct city staff to evaluate my framework for a future formal hearing. Thank you for your time, Mayor Pace, and to the entire council for your service.
Next up is, not to speak, but Aaron Nichols, you're next to take the seat. And next up is Karen Jocelyn. Karen?
Magic. Hi, I'm Karen Jocelyn. Thank you for being here. And this is, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed because I'm not going to talk about data centers, although I could go on. I live in the Jackson Hollow neighborhood, which is back on the corner of Arbor Roses, just on the other side of Chute Park. I think I met you when you came to my door campaigning. Didn't know a lot about Hillsboro, Oregon, until we moved here 10 years ago when my son started at the U of O. So we're here to stay. Bought the house in 2020, and we've lived outside of or in Dallas, Austin, north of Denver, outside of DC, from Columbus, Ohio, a couple other places, and I have yet to experience the number of levels of AHJs, authorities having jurisdiction, for all the different things and services. So I'm coming to you with not a prepared speech, but I have a set of questions, and this is what I have provided to you. I just wanted you to have a little bit of context. I just don't know where to go to get answers. I don't know how to follow this. The whole airport thing and the hangars popped up out of the blue to me. I think it probably came up on Facebook somehow because I am retired, finally, from an engineering company. I was a big part of the PDX current expansion, the T-Core redevelopment. I finally retired, so I try not to follow too much stuff. So I'm familiar with all of these things, but I come to you having experienced this outside of Columbus. My concerns about any growth to the Hilliard, which is where I lived, the Hillsboro Airport, and where things stand now. I'm still not clear on how to get answers, how to follow up the discussions, how to try to get some input, make sure things have been considered appropriately. And my main concerns are noise, given where I live and the community, traffic, and noise, except for the Oregon Air Show next weekend. I sit in my front yard and enjoy that. I've tried to make noise, because this is part of the Port of Portland, there's almost no way to get to a meaningful comment on noise because PDX gets their share. So ours all go in the hopper with all the rest of them. So the questions I can leave with you if I don't get through them, but number one would be, I'm curious as to if any requirements have been included that will prohibit any airport structures here at HIO for being used to house people, either short or long term, by any authorities, including but not limited to city, state, county, or any federal entities. Hopefully that's in the development agreement, that would be prohibited. In addition, I'm interested in the size and types of aircraft, what can currently be handled by and I have a typo here, the long runways as well as the short runway. The map I've given you here shows where I live and where Jackson Bottom Wetlands is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And
Robbie,
I need to know where to go to get answers.
Robbie, can we have a staff member let her know? Thank you very much. Okay. Next up is Yadira. So you'll be up to speak. Just hold tight, though. Mr. Brown, Wildfire, you are on deck, and you'll take the empty seat from Karen. All right, Yadira. Hey, you have 3 minutes. Press that center button until the light turns green. There you go.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
It's me again. So after hearing the presentation about the changes that our legislators have approved for land use, the first thought is, who benefits from this? My quick answer was quid pro quo, personal gain. So I've lived here all my life, and I cannot afford a home. I've known nothing but worked my entire life and get taxed very, very much. And the gap to the people who can actually afford a home and who can't is getting wider. While we see people that come in and they own companies. They have all the resources to go anywhere else, and they're taking Nike and Intel's lead. In healthcare, we have a similar model where we have administrators who live in a different state. They tell us how to work. We have to do more with less, and a lot of it is benchmarked from insurance companies with the payout. It's related to their bonuses. So excuse me when I say this, I find that the world is moved by personal gain and money, because unfortunately, I think about who benefits from this. So not having public hearing in the applications is such a disservice. My first thought is, who benefits from this? Is it the community who knows and has the values, or is it people with resources and the pockets that want to get something done quicker? Your City View catalog, or the newsletter, excuse me, it says Open Hillsboro, permits made simpler. Again, who is it making it simpler for? Is it the community workers, the people that are paying the taxes, or is it the big corporations that are gonna get the tax breaks? So, we are gonna keep showing up, but who is benefiting from this? My opinion is that a lot of people in our government, with government salaries, might have something to gain from all of this. Thank you.
Kimberly Culbertson, you can come up and take your dearest seat. And Jody Clark-Lampa, you have 3 minutes.
I'm not afraid of the green light. Originally, and I'm going to refer to City Views, originally when I was asking about why the community didn't know more about data centers coming in or that how it was going to be voted on, I was told it was all in here. It was all in City Views. So I went home and I checked for 4 months worth, and it wasn't there. But now we have it because we've stood up and complained. Now, we've been standing up and complaining about other things, and we will continue to stand up and complain, but here's my concern. For tonight's agenda on the work session, later on, deep, they're going to be discussing counselor conduct towards each other, which should be okay by now, and public conduct during meetings, and whether or not we can comment. You guys have the right to pull our ability to comment. So if you don't like it, we're out the door, and you've got armed guards right back there telling us we'll have to leave. This is not community. I wear many buttons, and the one that I like best of all of them is better together. So you better get it together and understand we are here. We're not here just for this issue or this issue or this issue. We're here. You turned on the lights for us. You didn't pay attention to us. And now we're here. And I'm going to stay nice because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, but I want everyone in this audience to know that your right to speak may be taken away by this group of people who were elected to represent us. Can you imagine if Manny Chavez had not had the opportunity to speak? Yeah. Some of us may be repeating ourselves, but by golly, that's not an expletive. It's important that you hear that there are this many of us this upset. Okay, so there was the article, I had 3 things today. The Oregonian and the Oregon Live article today, staff or council, I'm not going to interpret that article, but someone should. I was told tonight that there were misrepresentations in there. If there are, it's you guys' duty to let us know what those misrepresentations are. You represent us. Okay, so my last thing is we had proclamations for Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. What the holiness did we do for our Hispanic neighbors?
Thank you very much. Next up is Aaron Nichols. And Denise Kerr, you can take the empty seat. Aaron, hello, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Pace. My name is Aaron Nichols. I'm here to discuss data centers and the tax abatements the city provides to data centers. Specifically, I'd like to request that you update the data center FAQ the city graciously provided right before the election. There are several areas that I think are no longer accurate given some of the contracts signed in the last 2 weeks. The following FAQs are definitely out of date now and now misleading. How many data centers are in Hillsboro? It appears that 12 abatements were approved in the last few weeks, and those go out to about 2044. Are all data centers the same? It appears that Hillsboro doesn't ask for data center types when approving tax abatements, but of the 12 projects that were approved since the 15th, 3 of them provided details. Those were all AI data centers, which is not represented by the FAQs. Do data centers pay property taxes? Of the 12 that were approved, they were all approved for 100% property tax abatements in their first 5 years. And this is at a time when even politicians who months ago supported massive data center development are now calling for a moratorium on data centers. It's pretty questionable. The city is giving billions of dollars in tax breaks, billions. Will mostly be paid, honestly, by the YAC members sitting next to you. Will data centers bring jobs and benefits? It's required in these contracts that data centers provide jobs at more than 102% of the minimum wage, which is less than the average wage on the farms that they've replaced. These are not high-wage jobs we hope for. And with the cost of tax payments per job, we taxpayers are paying about $700,000 per year per job. In the end, while the timing of data centers seeking a sale that we've offered them for years now, maybe the result of a state bill, the 20 years of failed economic development policy that it represents is squarely in the city's court. And it's a failure we'll be paying for decades. The city's economic development is still fighting the battles of the 90s, looking for more land, looking for more tax breaks to give away while chasing after investment. But the investment we've seen is buying servers and pouring concrete on world-class farm soils, investment that pays dividends to billionaires but doesn't invest in our community. Our kids, my kids, who are watching farmland being bulldozed down the street from their school, West Union, for a data center, will have to breathe the exhaust of diesel generators and have to wonder what's in their well water. All of us who believe in climate change will have to wonder where our food comes from and how we'll build resilient communities. Are we looking at these questions when we approve economic development directions, when the city is demanding more land simply because it's locked up its own industrial land with data centers receiving tax breaks? Well, I agree the city needs to make serious reforms about how it improves enterprise zones, who it allows to lead its economic development department, and what types of businesses it courts. It's absolutely critical the city face up to its failures in how it uses land. Under the circumstances, expansion of the UGB cannot be the city's primary legislative goal in future sessions. In fact, until there is a real plan for economic development that includes and benefits the larger community, and critically, builds climate resilience we'll need in the future, the city should not expand onto the surrounding farmland at all. It is time for accountability, it's time for new plans, and honestly, time for new leadership. Thank you for your time.
Myrna Munoz, you can take the empty seat, and Mr. Brown Wildfire, you have 3 minutes.
All right, I'm not asking for reform or the slowing down of data centers. I'm here to demand that we stop the data centers completely. I'm not here to beg for these useless leaders to save us when we can save ourselves. I'm here to empower the people because we don't need them, and I'm here to say what these leaders are too scared or ignorant to tell you. You stand against racism. Why are we funding police that started as a way to catch enslaved people? And according to a 2017-2019 report, Intel uses about 3 billion gallons annually of water, and they think that it takes them off the hook, but the fact that their recycled water has PFAs or forever chemicals says otherwise. They're essentially poisoning us while receiving billions in tax breaks, and it's ironic because they talk about helping the working class in the community. I haven't seen any local businesses getting any tax breaks, and the Hillsboro School District got 20 million cut, and this upcoming year they're going to be selling some of their land to try to cover the cost, and they're still in a deficit. They have the audacity to demand respect and civility out of us while they disrespect us by lying to our face and would use violence against us if we don't follow their crooked rules. Why haven't y'all focused on helping local farmers? If y'all care so much about the local economy and people, why haven't you advocated for teachers or affordable housing? You don't need experts or geniuses to recognize the pattern of data centers poisoning everywhere they pop up. And if they're so good, why are they not being built in rich areas? They're really trying to convince us that eliminating public commentary is good for us because it'll shorten decision making. Ha! Okay, as if we're stupid. Decisions we have no control of is a great excuse for why y'all would never push back. And they expect us to trust their rich butts to prioritize the working class behind closed doors when they don't even do it in public. Their solution to public outcry is to get rid of the public's ability to voice their opinions and concerns instead of prioritizing the public in these decisions. Decisions who won't affect them the way it does us, the working class. They don't want to stop annexing land, they just want to change how they do it. They're not getting rid of evil, they're choosing lesser evils. And when it comes to housing, they're not asking why there's more empty housing than there are unhoused people. They're trying to convince us that their Band-Aid solutions are effective, either because they've been duped or they're duping us. Switching to semiconductors or advanced manufacturing does not ignore the environmental impact, and compromise is not victory. They have the audacity to say they stand with immigrants, but they increase the budget. And it's so interesting, I found out that you're married to someone so high-ranking in the police department. No wonder you're advocating for that instead of advocating for funding the schools or for helping the people or social programs. But these police don't even do anything to stop the ICE people because they're doing federal work. But okay, let's increase their budget. Like, come on.
Thank you. Next up is...
Read banned books. The Wretched of the Earth, Franz Fanon.
You are done, sir. Thank you.
1619 Project.
Next one is Elijah. Next one up is Elijah Radford. You can take the empty seat, Elijah. And Kimberly Culbertson, you have 3 minutes.
All right. To my knowledge, this has not been proposed to the Urban Renewal Advisory Committee. As a person who sits on that body, I would know because I read. But as you know, the Urban Renewal Advisory Committee is a vital Goal 1 function. For the younger folks in this room, Goal 1 calls for the opportunity for citizens to be involved in all phases of the planning process. It requires each city and county to have citizen involvement to program for that address. 1, opportunities for widespread public involvement. 2, effective two-way communications with the public. 3, the ability for the public to be involved in all phases of the planning process. 4, making technical information easy to understand. 5, feedback mechanisms for policymakers to respond to public input. 6, adequate financial support for public involvement efforts. Now, this goal calls for local governments to have a committee for citizen involvement. We decided on an Urban Renewal Advisory Committee, and we did not use that Urban Renewal Advisory Committee.
To press the button, your mic went off. Oh, it's on now. It's on. You're good. Keep going.
Okay. The Urban Renewal Advisory Committee would be the place to start that discussion and work through those technical issues. And that is why I am indicating that this is not seen proper process yet. And this is not a place where technical discussions are happening. We've got a lot of very passionate people in here, not undeservedly passionate, but I would rather we saw this information come to us in a form that we could digest and disseminate earlier in this process. This shouldn't be something that we just hear about in the Oregonian, for heaven's sake. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Next up is Denise Kerr, but Antonia Lopez, you can take the empty seat. Denise, you have 3 minutes.
Mayor, council members, my name is Denise Kerr, and I've lived in Hillsboro for close to 40 years. I just turned 75 last week, and I grew up in Aloha. So you could say I'm pretty steeped in the culture around here. Actually, my family has been here for 200 years. So there's a couple things I want to say. And I had out some little cartoony things here for the council. I don't have a well-written little speech at all like I normally do, but I do have a list of things I'd like to mention. First of all, the data centers, KGW spot being pulled. What was that all about? Someone wanted equal time, so they said, well, so you're going to have to cancel the opposition. And that seems sort of illogical to me. If you want the same time, then just send some people in who are pro data center, data farms, and let them have their time. But no, you want to cancel the time of the dissidents. And I noticed that there's been a real flurry of data center information coming from the Hillsboro, coming from the city recently. Like today, the community information. So about this information that just came out today, there's a lot of data in there with really no interpretation. It's just piles and piles of numbers, and this person did that, and this came from this Deloitte survey and the Open Vault report, and these various meaningless documents to anybody who just lives in the city, and it's meant to impress. And I think it's interesting that one of the references is Jones Lang LaSalle, which is a giant investment company. And then also the format, this lovely little oops, I don't have it. The lovely little chart in there talking about, I think it was water usage and costs. It's done in scientific the symbols and whatnot. What person living here can possibly even know what that table is supposed to be conveying? So it's all this big, giant ideas with really no substance. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Myrna Munoz. Myrna, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Hillsboro City Council. I wish I were surprised to be saying this, but no. Reporting by the Oregonian today confirmed what community advocates have warned for years. Hillsboro is rushing to approve long-term tax subsidy deals for data centers, even as the public cost becomes impossible to ignore. Recent reporting found the top 11 tech company-owned data centers in Hillsboro employ an average of just 26 full-time workers each, while receiving an average of $7.6 million annually in property tax breaks, or roughly $294,000 in tax abatements for every permanent job created. When corporations get nearly $3,000 in tax breaks for each permanent job they create, that is not economic development. It's corporate welfare. For every one of those jobs, our communities are giving away enough money to keep teachers in classrooms, which lowers class sizes and protect the health and safety programs our community depends on. In Washington County, this lost revenue could help prevent teacher layoffs, preserve student supports, and fund the kind of public health every child deserves. Instead, we're subsidizing server racks while our schools and health systems fall apart. The public was told these giveaways were about jobs. They are not. They're about giving massive long-term tax breaks to some of the wealthiest corporations in the world, while working families are left to absorb the cost. I've been knocking on some doors recently, and you'll be shocked to hear you are out of touch. This community agrees that those dollars should be going into our classrooms and health and safety needs, not into tax shelters for billion-dollar tech companies. I will continue to fight for our community to have justice with respect to being heard, seen, and represented. We do not wish to be on sale. Thank you.
Next up is Elijah Radford. And Ms. Kerr, you're good. You did your testimony, so you can hit
Is
the
there
mic.
someone else coming up?
No, but you're done, so you can have a seat in the audience
Well,
if you'd
what's
like.
wrong with just sitting here?
She said she was.
Please turn off your mic. Elijah Radford, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. It's going to be hard to follow that up. I wasn't going to speak today, but I was moved by the youth participation here. I think it's very timely that we're talking about the tax breaks that the data centers are getting, the tax breaks that fund the public schools that I hope you all use and I hope you got to enjoy through your life. I hope that many generations to come get to enjoy our public schools. And I hope our public schools don't rank 50th for 4th grade literacy next year like it did this year. I have a couple of points I would like to remind the community behind me and the youth in front of me. One, there is still contention between the city and the people that live in the city about how many data centers there are in Hillsboro. The e-letter, the newsletter they sent out said 18. Myself and others who have went around and counted, we can count at least 25 unique addresses that house campuses, and some of those campuses have more than one building on them. So there's already contention between how many there are, and we cannot get them to just give us a list of, oh, here's the 18 we're counting. Because then we could ask, well, why don't you count the other ones that we have on our list? The 25 addresses that we have counted have a real market value of over $6 billion, that's with a B, billion dollars, but are only taxed at a value of $1.5 billion. Property taxes pay for our schools, and the enterprise zones breaks will not help us like you claim they will. If they could have helped our community, it would have happened by now. But instead, the Hillsboro School District is facing a $20 million shortfall. I remind you of this while you sit next to our current students. The centers the centers have no choice but to operate here. There are subsea cables that run from Japan, Hawaii, Southeast Asia, and converge on Northeast Evergreen Parkway. It's like a coal mining town giving tax breaks to the mining company. The coal isn't going anywhere. The cables aren't going anywhere. They have to operate here. You are engaging in corporate welfare because your goals are aligned with the wealthy and not with the people that live here. Corporate welfare and corporate flight is a myth you perpetuate. In December of 2025, the Carl Vinson Institute government at the University of Georgia released an audit of the state's sales tax exemption for data centers. They found that 70% of the data center projects would have located Georgia even without the subsidies. That's as early as last year. Your entire economic model requires uninterrupted growth until the end of time. But anyone who knows how the system really works can see what's happening. You essentially have a cup with a hole in the bottom of it, and you are trying to fill it with more water in the form of data centers. There's one old saying that I like, and I think will summarize our current situation very well. The only people who got rich during the gold rush were the ones that are selling the shovels. And the ones that are selling the shovels are the few rich property owners and the ones that you are aligning with. PGE, BlackRock, the ones who own the centers, the ones who own the electricity, and not your constituents. Thank you.
Our last speaker this evening is Antonia Lopez. Antonia, you have 3 minutes.
Mayor Peace, I didn't prepare a speech for today, but I've been watching the way you operate. And the way you operate was like the day that you ignored me at the market when I asked you to help our community. You guys exhaust us so that we're too exhausted to defend ourselves. It took public outrage for you to protect our community. And I thought that was just because I'm used to the racism in Washington County, especially from the institutions, because I've worked in various ones. I thought it was because we were brown, so we get ignored. But now I see I really see you for who you are. Even when there was public outrage and you guys did the state of emergency, Councilor Claire asked for you guys to put that last work session in December back on the books. And you said, why? You had just declared a state of emergency and you were asked questioning as to why? What I see that you're doing right now is now I understand why these people that were for the data centers joined the moratorium, because you were putting your little sail on. I can only wonder, because you are good at pivoting. You pivot when the tide changes. And I'm going to quote you. You told Janine Solomon, thank you for working your ass off trying to pass that bill. Publicly, you said that to her. Even after major public outrage, you're still championing it. So I can only wonder why this time you're not pivoting. Who is benefiting from this? Because we know that the person that you endorsed has gotten campaign contributions from an electric company in Idaho. Why would an electric company in Idaho have any interest on who our senator is? So what are you gaining? A real leader would hear us, would hear the public outrage, and even if the moratorium is not put into place this minute, you don't rush to sell our land. That is violence. You guys are killing us by your policies. You are putting our resources at sale. You just said it. You guys don't even have any goddamn shame. You say it. Let's sell it. Sell it now before the door closes. Is that what a leader does? Or does a leader listen to their community? And even if there's a gap, do you not stop it and say no? You guys don't care. That is violence. I was wondering, I didn't know that you were married to a police officer, and I remember what you told me at the market, that the police could not help us. Being married to a career police officer, I would think that you would know what law enforcement's job is. You just don't care.
Okay, moving to item 4, the consent agenda.
The items on the consent agenda are normally considered in a single motion. Tonight, we only have one item listed. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved, Danbury.
Do I have a second?
Second case.
Is there any discussion? May we please have a roll call?
Councilor Kerr.
Aye.
Councilor Case.
Hi.
Councilor Enbury.
Here.
Councilor Harris.
Aye.
Councilor Salgado.
Aye.
Can we get, we had a here, can we get an aye or a nay for Councilor Emery?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes.
All right, moving to item 6.1. Consider declining a community member's request for an exception to the city naming policy to add 2 proposed names to the city's asset name database. Do I have a motion to decline the request?
Councilor Harris so moves.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
I would like to make an amendment.
Okay. Well, we have a motion that needs a second. Will there be a second? No? Okay. Amendment?
I would like to move that we move Beaver to the database and reject Wally.
I'll agree to that amendment.
Okay. So do we have a motion to accept Beaver into the list and decline Wally on the list? Do I have a motion for that?
I would like a conversation before we start making amendments about this, if that's okay, because it feels a little bit out of the norm to add amendments before a second. So
yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yep.
Point of order. I believe if someone offers an amendment and the person who made the motion accepts the amendment, then that is in fact the motion. So then if someone would want to second the motion.
If we second, then we can go to discussion.
Then we go to discussion, yes.
So do we have a second on the motion that will decline the name Wally but accept the name Beaver to go into the list? Do I have a second for that?
Second case.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Councilor Salgado.
So just some feedback for the staff, and I don't know if it's me, if it's just me or if anybody else had the same issue with this, but the wording around the staff report is a little bit confusing. So what I'm understanding is that a community member is requesting that we add 2 names to the list or to name a street, and the staff is recommending that we don't approve that, right?
That is correct.
So I just want to call it out and say, if nobody else was confused on that, then it's on me. I'll have to figure out a way to reread stuff. But it was just very confusing, the way that it was worded. And then another thing I would say is, this is one of those situations and one of those decisions at the city council where we have to really understand the impact of the decision versus the input of the community member, and really what we're opening up here for the community to give us feedback on. There is really no negative impact to allowing this to happen. But we've spent now, this is, I think, the third or fourth meeting on it. And I feel like this is one of those decisions where, obviously it's really important for a community member. She's dedicated her time to come and show up and advocate for her family, which I think is very commendable. And as a city councilor, I sit here and I say, you know what, that shows to me that she really cares, it's really important. It's a really easy decision for me because the impacts of that decision are very, very minimal economically, financially, socially, politically. So that's the only thing I want to say, and I want to encourage everybody else to accept the request of the community member to name these streets these names. So thank you.
Any other, Councilor Ambery?
Okay. Yes. So I agree with what Councilor Salgado is saying. The reason why I am recommending what I'm recommending, which is not approving Wally but putting Beaver in the city's database, is because I don't want to set precedents. This was a confusing situation. There was this is the first time that we are doing this as the city. There was incorrect information given out, but I don't want to set this precedence where we do have, so the rule is that we should not, we should try not to name cities, streets on based on people. And so that's why I'm recommending we don't do Wally. I do understand Denise has been coming many times. I feel for you, Denise, and I know it's very unfair, but I'm just kind of looking out into the future, and I don't want to set this precedence of that. But again, honoring you, I would like to have Beaver put in the database. So that's why. But I want to do this so that it's clean for the city staff going forward.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I forgot to add one more thing.
Could you hold, please, Councilor Salgado? Councilor Alcare.
Yeah, Robbie, maybe you can remind me, but there was a time when Old Orenco wanted to name their streets, and it was, I can't remember, had to do with what people were growing before in that area. And I remember that conversation, and I thought, what a privilege it is that people get to choose the names of their streets. When I don't see Martinez, Rodriguez, Alcaide, Salgado, I don't see names like that. So I've always wondered, how does that happen? So how did that happen?
Councilor Alcare, thanks for the question. So there's been several instances, and like the one you mentioned, that led actually to the new naming policy that the council adopted a couple of years ago. So that's a good example of why, as staff, we don't recommend naming things after names of people. We're trying to avoid those situations in the future, which is why we made the recommendation tonight.
And I do recall the streets in Old Orenco, and they were named after trees. So it was consistent with that. So.
Well, that's okay if it's trees. I'm asking, how come we can't have some names in Spanish?
Councilor Salgado, and then Councilor Harris.
Yeah, I just want to add 2 points. So number one, I'm saying that as a Duck fan. So the word beaver, I'm indoctrinated by the University of Oregon. Anytime I see the word beaver, the color is black and orange, I get a little knot in my stomach. All right, so for me to say let's approve beaver, it's a big deal. Second, I read the email thread where they went back and forth on the name. I feel like they found a compromise by reducing it to Wally, which is more universal. So yes, it is a name, but it's a more universal name, and so that's why I'm okay. I understand the nuances. I remember the conversations we had around Wicca and why it's complicated to name certain streets, certain names, because we have a lot of monolingual speakers in Wicca, which I think we need to encourage multilingual people to work there so that we can communicate with our diverse community. But that is one of the reasons why I think names are complicated, but again, they compromised on a universal name. So that's why I'm fully in support of accepting the recommendation. So that'll be the last thing I'll say on this.
And to be clear, Councilor Salgado, you are saying you are supporting Beaver being added to the list, but not Wally.
I'm supporting both names being added to the list.
Both names.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Harris.
Thanks, and this has been, we probably shouldn't have had to spend 3 council sessions for doing this, but it has caused me some concern and grief because I'm sure Mr. Van Dommelen was a wonderful man, neighbor, father, and parent, and community member, and we have hundreds or thousands of people who could say the same thing about their parents. And so the issue I had with this is not the quality of his character or the passion of his family. That's not my issue at all, or any honors that he has rightly earned. The issue I have is similar probably to what Councilor Alcair's issue is, the equity of anyone living in this city who could bring their wonderful parent to, and the ability to stand here to City Council and present it to us in such a passionate way. Not everyone is able to do that or tell the same story. They have a different story, and that's why we have equity toolkits. And this is why we've adopted a policy, although it's apparently slightly flawed policy on street naming, and we have a process where we do have a community to review those names and approve them as naming opportunities within our city, whether it's streets or parks or whatever it is. And deviating from that recently adopted policy in the last few years, I just don't think it's wise unless it's an exceptional circumstance, such as an astronaut from Hillsboro who landed on the moon or something. And then we would say, we can't wait, we got to do that, that's so important. And I'm not saying any one individual is not that important. I just don't know that my conclusion was this does not fit the situation that the ordinance stated, that the council has the ability to override the normal process. There will be another opportunity to name cities, streets after individuals. They can be presented in the normal course to the review committee, go through the equity toolkit. Everyone will have an opportunity to weigh in. And I just believe that's the way this should have happened. On the other hand, the one exception, the one thing that caused me a little concern is this is the area where the Van Donlens lived. The streets need to be named now. They can't wait a year and a half for another tranche of names. I get that. But I'm just trying to explain why my motion was to deny both. It was not regarding anyone's contribution to this community. I probably will not get the name Husky added to any streets.
Probably not.
But it's just that I think we should have gone through the process. But, given the timeliness or the time constraints of this particular development, I understand if other people feel differently about that. I just wanted to make the reasoning for my coming vote clear.
Councillor Case?
My reasoning is a little bit different, and I think it's the rules changed in the middle for this one, and that I think is what I have struggled with in these conversations and conversations that I've had with multiple staff members and counselors about, is that when the time came to name the first street after Mrs. Van Domelen, Helene, that went through, no problems, and then we changed the rules to have more equity and make opportunity for names of all cultures that our community represents included. And so there's a fairness to this that feels like it really was just unfortunate timing. And so that was why 2 weeks ago I voted no and paused so that we could just take a minute and back up and make sure we had all the pieces there. So I support Councillor Anvery's motion.
Okay, so on the floor, we have a motion and a second to approve adding Beaver to the list, but not Wally. May I please have a roll call?
Councilor Alcair.
Nay.
Councilor Case.
Aye.
Councilor Anvery.
Aye.
Councilor Harris.
No.
Councilor Salgado.
Abstain.
Can you state your reason for abstaining?
I don't feel comfortable with a yes or a no on this, just because it's really messy, and I feel like there's an easy answer here, and we're making it complicated, and so that is why I'm going to abstain from this vote.
Typically, abstentions are connected to conflicts of interest, either actual or perceived conflict of interest. Do you have a conflict of interest where you are receiving gain to vote yes or no on this? Do I have that right? Do we have an attorney here? Was Chad here?
I believe Chad is online.
Yeah. Chad, can you confirm that? I want to make sure that what I'm saying about the abstention is correct. Typically.
Yeah, so under the council rules, the intent is to have everyone vote on every issue that comes before the council. And abstentions are usually limited to situations where there's a conflict of interest or some sort of bias in a quasi-judicial situation. However, the council has permitted people to abstain in the past, and it's really just with the consent of the council if the council wants to sort of allow that to happen. It's just been one of those things that we've said should clarify at some point about what that process would be. So if Councilor Salgado would like to abstain, he could ask permission to do so. Otherwise, he should vote on the matter.
Great. All right. So do you want to maintain your abstention?
I would like to. I mean, I think, this is, again, the impact of this decision is not very consequential, right? But we're complicating the process, and I feel like I'm making strong points, and I'm pointing to really direct facts. And I haven't heard one of you directly address any of those things. You're just sharing your opinion as to why your position is the way it is. And so I feel like the conversation around this isn't a fair conversation, because I do feel strongly about supporting a community person regardless of their race or their background. They're spending their time to come in and talk to us. We do not make it easy for people to come in and talk to us. All right, we make it hard. We make it difficult. We give them 3 minutes. That is something that I hold really strong in my values. And because of that, I don't know if you want to call it a conflict of interest, but I just don't want to participate in this. So that is why I'm abstaining, because I don't feel like we're having an honest conversation around this.
Okay, so the motion did not pass because there were 2 ayes, 2 nays, and an abstention.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Since it was a tie vote, aren't you, as the mayor, the tie-breaking vote?
Oh, yeah, Amber.
Just giving the kids all the lessons tonight on how city council works, sorry.
I'll confirm with Chad, but only in certain circumstances can the mayor cast a vote on a tie vote.
Yeah. Chad, what say you, sir?
Yeah, so under the charter and under the council rules, the mayor can vote to break a tie. And so in this situation, because there's a tie, you could cast a vote.
Okay, great. I vote nay. Thank you. The motion does not pass and the motion, again, was to keep Beaver and not Wally, and that does not pass. Is this resolved now, Robbie?
I'm going to defer to Chad, because the issue here is that the recommendation from staff was to decline this. The amendment was to kind of split it in half, and that did not pass. So, Chad, I don't know if we need another. If we need to go back to the original motion, or what do you think, Chad?
So at this point, the mayor can ask if any other councilor wants to make another motion. And if there's no other motions, then this item is just done, and you'll move on to the next agenda item.
Okay.
If there's another motion, then you would have a second, and then debate that motion and vote on that motion.
All right, so we had a motion to decline it, and that did not go. That was amended. And then the motion was to have Beaver accepted and not Wally, and that did not pass. Do I have another motion?
Yes.
Councilor Ambery.
I would go back to the original motion.
To decline it.
Yes.
Okay, so do I have a motion to decline the request?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. Okay. May I please have a roll call?
Councilor Kerr.
What am I voting for?
This is to decline the request outright, so none of the names, so Beaver nor Wally, make it to the list.
I am voting yes so that neither Wally or Beaver make it to the list.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Case,
Aye.
Thank you.
Councillor Anvery,
Aye.
Councillor Harris,
Thank you.
Aye.
Councillor Salgado.
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay. So we have 4 votes aye and 1 abstention, and so the community member's request has been declined. Moving on to item 7.1.
Hillsboro Comprehensive Plan Amendment 003-23, Parks and Recreation Section Update. Consider the Planning Commission's recommendation to adopt an ordinance approving a Hillsboro Comprehensive Plan major amendment to update goals and policies in Section 6 Parks and Recreation and correct the reference to the Parks and Recreation System Plan 2025 in Section 3 Public Facilities. Ordinance number 6514 is available. Do I have a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 6514?
Harris, so moves.
Do I have a second?
Second Case.
Is there any discussion? May we please have a roll call?
Councillor Kerr,
Aye.
Councillor Case,
Aye.
Councillor Anvery,
Aye.
Councillor Harris,
Aye.
Councillor Salgado.
Aye.
The first reading of ordinance number 6514 passes. The second reading and consideration of final adoption of the ordinance will be May 19th. Moving on to number 7.2, Community Development Code Amendment 001-26, Child Care Residential Treatment and MHLD Revision. Consider the Planning Commission's recommendation to approve an update to the Community Development Code in order to be in compliance with new and existing state regulations regarding child care facilities, residential treatment facilities, and middle housing land divisions. Ordinance number 6516 is available. Do I have a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 6516?
Harris, so moves.
Do I have a second?
Second Case.
Is there any discussion? May we please have a roll call?
Councillor Kerr,
Aye.
Councillor Case,
Aye.
Councillor Anvery,
Aye.
Councillor Harris,
Aye.
Councillor Salgado.
Aye.
The first reading of ordinance number 6516 passes. The second reading and consideration of final adoption of the ordinance will be May 19th. Item number 7.3, Hillsboro Comprehensive Plan Amendment 001-26, TSP Update. Consider the Planning Commission's recommendation to adopt an ordinance approving a Hillsboro Comprehensive Plan Amendment to incorporate updates to the Transportation Systems Plan. Ordinance number 6515 is available. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance number 6515?
So moved, Anvery.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? May we please have a roll call?
Councillor O'Kerr,
Aye.
Councillor Case,
Aye.
Councillor Anvery,
Aye.
Councillor Harris,
Aye.
Councillor Salgado.
Aye.
Ordinance number 6515 is adopted. Moving on to new business, item 8.1, consider Parks and Recreation Commission's recommendation to adopt a resolution authorizing the Parks and Recreation Department to apply for the Local Government Grant 2026 to secure funding to update Griffin Oaks Park Playground. Resolution number 2917 is available. Do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 2917?
So moved Case.
Do I have a second?
Second, Anvery.
Is there any discussion? May we please have a roll call?
Councillor O'Kerr,
Aye.
Councillor Case,
Aye.
Councillor Anvery,
Aye.
Councillor Harris,
Aye.
Councillor Salgado.
Aye.
Resolution number 2917 is adopted. Moving on to item 8.2, consider adopting a resolution adopting the 2024 Sanitary Sewer Master Plan. Resolution number 2918 is available. Before I ask for a motion on this item, I'd like to invite Allison Bergson up for a brief presentation.
Welcome, Allison. Yeah, so we're getting close to the 9 o'clock hour when the yak needs to go. Do you know how long your presentation will be? Depends, right?
I don't know that I can do it in 3 minutes. I can give it my hardest try.
Go for it, Allison. Let's see what we can do. All right.
Good evening, councilors and mayor. Thank you. I'm Allison Bergsing, your Utilities Division Manager. I'm in charge of storm and sanitary sewer. So tonight I'm presenting you the sanitary sewer master plan. We had a kind of presentation plan, but generally speaking, master plans look ahead for the next 10 to 15 years. So the purpose of this master plan, just fly through them and it'll be fine. The purpose of this master plan is just to kind of look out at our sanitary sewer and talk about what we're needing to repair in the next 10 to 15 years. Are you okay if I just keep going without the slides?
Please go.
Okay. And the master plan generally is going to show us where we need to do maintenance and what we need to do as far as maintaining the pipes that are important to us, as well as the manholes. We have a number of other things that are included in there, including our capital infrastructure plan and our asset management plan. Sorry. And then in general, they work in congruence with our CWS master plan, which does our growth. So together, these make up the whole of what we're going to be looking for from you in our sanitary sewer infrastructure. We are also going to be back later on this year to talk to you about rate setting. So that's not what we're here to talk to you about today. We are only presenting what is the findings of our sanitary sewer master plan, which is the statement of what our sewer system looks like, where our infrastructure is lacking, and where we need a little bit of potentially extra maintenance in the future, including a CIP plan and our asset management plan. We'll just go to the next, kind of towards the end, I think is where we're at. I'm happy to answer any questions. In general, though, the plan had a number of CIP projects in it, and they were generally done in accordance with our equity toolkit, and we were able to overlay all of our CIP plans and our growth plans against the equity toolkit, and we were able to find that they were largely in congruence with our vulnerable communities, as that's where most of our aging infrastructure is. So that's where we will be focusing most of our time in the next 10 to 20 years, as well as maintaining our normal programs that kind of help prevent potential sanitary sewer overflows. I love talking about sanitary sewer, as most of you know. I recognize that most of you also do not. So if there is anything you would like to know further about sanitary sewer, I'm happy to talk about it, but I want to respect your time tonight.
Thank you, Allison. Any questions for Allison? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 2918?
I make a motion.
Thank you.
Salgado motions.
Do I have a second?
Second, Anvery.
Is there any discussion? May we please have a roll call?
Councillor Kerr,
Aye.
Councillor Case,
Aye.
Councillor Envery,
Aye.
Councillor Harris,
Aye.
Councillor Salgado.
Aye.
Resolution number 2918 is adopted.
Excellent. Thank you very much. It is 9 o'clock and the Yak needs to leave. Yak, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Really appreciate you. Thanks, Anna. Great job. Great job. Nice and chill. All right. We'll take a 5-minute recess and we'll come back at 9:05. Going to take one at the end, please. All right, so we're going to reconvene. Thank you. So we have all the councilors back. Thank you so much for the recess. And thanks again to Yak for joining us. We have one Yacker remaining. Woo! Yeah, and he's here to do our city manager report. So I'm going to move down to item 9, and we'll come back to item 8.3. And we're moving to item 9, so Sahil can do the city manager report and then get home. All right, so now I'll turn the time over to our city manager, Sahil Shah.
Good evening, Council. I'm shadowing City Manager Robbie Hammond, and I'm Sahil Shah. I have one brief item to share tonight with our community. In 2026, the City of Hillsboro is marking 150 years of serving the community. As our vibrant community has evolved since 1876, Hillsboro has become an incredible hub of diverse cultures, artistic creativity, and entrepreneurial spirit. Our future is bright as well. One way we are sharing that excitement is a 150th anniversary video featuring the voices and perspectives of our city council members. You can watch the 150th anniversary video on the city's 150th anniversary webpage and on our YouTube channel. Our partners at TVC-TV, specifically Kevin Howard, did an amazing job creating the video. It includes many old photos and modern videos that show Hillsboro then and now. Thank you to our council for giving your time and energy. Thank you to Parks and Recreation Public Information Officer Colin Militech and Assistant City Manager Simone Brooks for coordinating the video. And thank you to the community for taking a minute to celebrate 150 years of local government service. Thank you.
Thank you, Sahil. Yes, good job. And thank you to Sahil's mom for watching on YouTube. Good job, Mom. Okay, moving to item 8.3, consider adopting a resolution authorizing the purchase of real property in Jackson East North area from the Hillsboro Economic Development Council. Resolution number 2919 is available. As a reminder, this item corresponds to item 3.1 of the May 5th Hillsboro Economic Development Council agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 2919?
So moved, Case.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Salgado seconds.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? May I have a roll call?
Councilors Alcair,
Nay.
Case,
Aye.
Anvery,
Aye.
Harris,
Aye.
Salgado,
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution number 2919 is adopted. Now I'm moving on to council comments. As a reminder, council comments is recently adopted in our new council rules, and council members have up to 3 minutes to provide comments if they have any. There is no requirement to speak. It's just an opportunity if you have something on your mind or you want to bring something up. The council should not engage in any deliberation or debate over any comments or topics raised during this portion of the agenda, other than expressing general support for adding a topic to a future agenda. If a majority of the council supports moving an item forward, the item will be referred to the city manager for scoping. Do any councilors wish to provide a comment? Councilor Alcair.
Yeah, I'd like to provide a comment of not discouraging renters from wanting to run for city council positions. Our city is 49% renting, and limiting only land-owning people to qualify to be able to run for office sends a message of land-owning aristocracy. That's who gets to make decisions. So I'm just bringing that up. I don't know if in future somebody who rents wants to run for the city council, but they should. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Anvery.
Yes. I wanted to request to see if the FAQs on the data centers did need to be updated. I don't know, but if they
based on the testimony today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will
thank
continue. Sorry to interrupt you. We will continue to try to keep those updated as new information comes. The one that came up tonight
Yes.
was a bit unique because they're talking about some data centers that just don't exist yet, right? So it's hard to know how to include those in the numbers.
Yeah.
But yes, as we get more information, we'll try to keep those updated.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilor Salgado.
Yeah. I would like for us to. I don't have the wording for the ask, and I should have been more prepared. But I just want to give you some background. So. I got invited along with Councilor Alcair and a couple of other community members to a listening session with OPB, and they were asking us what Washington County needed from OPB, what sort of stories should they cover, et cetera, right? We talked about ICE, the impacts of, on businesses and all these things. So out of all that came a discussion and conversation with somebody from a Spanish-speaking radio station, one of the most popular Spanish-speaking radio stations. They partnered with the city of Woodburn to create a campaign around their downtown center to bring more Hispanic people, Spanish-speaking people, to the downtown core to revitalize after the ICE raids. And it's been successful. They're organizing it around There's some elements organized around the World Cup because soccer is huge during the World Cup for the Mexican and Spanish-speaking community, and they're partnered with local business and partners, and I think it's a really good model, and just understanding the influence that Spanish radio has on that community, I think it's a really good investment, a good ROI if we want to talk in those terms. The dollar is going to go way further than anything else we do to bring people back downtown, especially from that community, and so I am working on connecting with local businesses. I have a few already that are interested in having this conversation. They support this idea. I've been communicating with our city manager, Robbie Hammond. He's in general support. I would love for the rest of the council to support this. I would love for you all to participate in these conversations around what the program looks like, how much it costs, and how we can participate to bring more people to downtown, because we just celebrated 2 grand openings and they're asking me about foot traffic already. That's a real concern. So we want to keep supporting that, and we should definitely invest in bringing people down. So however you want to word that, but definitely bring that to is either a work session or 2x2 meetings, however it is. Let's just kind of work on moving forward with that.
Thank you, Councilor. I don't have an answer for that yet. We're starting to look into it. I've got Patrick Preston involved as well, so we'll start looking into it, figure out how to meet with them, and somehow we'll bring back information, whether it be through a work session or 2 weeks. We'll continue to flesh that out, as long as the council's okay with it, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I'm in support of that. It's great. Yeah. Thumbs up?
Thumbs up.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Councilor? Okay, we have majority. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Councilor Salgado. Councilor Case.
I just want to take a minute and thank the staff for all their hard work. There's been a lot going on over the last few months, and I know we ask a lot of questions and we're all still learning sometimes too. Specifically, tonight I wanted to give a shout out to Ruth Klein, the work that we did 2 weeks ago. And the de novo hearing was a lot. It was a lot of prep. I know it was months and months and months of the planning team. Just wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to her and the team for answering our questions, helping us to understand before we got here, while we were here, and then a little, PTSD after the fact. So just wanted to say thanks to the staff for all their hard work. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilor Case. Moving to item 11. You good? Anybody else? Yeah, okay. Moving to item 11, advice and information. Community members who want to be informed and engaged in city council matters can sign up to receive the Happening in Hillsboro email newsletter. Spanish language updates are also available through our Creciendo Juntos email newsletter. As a reminder, the post-council work session has been postponed to a future agenda, and with that, the city council meeting is adjourned.